And if you want to have a civilization that is powerful, you need to harness all of it. And so here's the thing. You can have a civilization that has women in the home and they're going to be great homemakers. But when you compare that to a culture and a civilization that knows how to utilize women as homemakers and as mothers, but also allows them to contribute to the economy when they're able to, that civilization will be far superior to the one that doesn't. And it's really that simple at the end of the day. We want to create things that last. And the way you do that is you find a way to include women. Women have a lot to contribute politically and, intellectually and whatnot. And what we need to do is learn how to manage female pathology, which scales across the internet, in the same way that we've learned to manage male pathology through our institutions. And we need to do that so that women can contribute without also corrupting or making the public square worse.
Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not there is a war on women, and we are starting right now with our leftists on the left side of the screen, as well as Brenton on the top, and those of our participants who are on the right side of your screen, including Marie on the very bottom. And with that, thanks very much. Brenton, for your opening statement, we'll let you get the ball rolling for the next 2 minutes. The floor is all yours.
So I've been thinking about this issue a lot, due in large part to the unilateral and unpopular overturning of Roe v. Wade. I think before we say anything, we need to define our terms, because language is tricky and a single word or phrase can have multiple meanings, a fact that is absolutely exploited by busybody culture warriors for clicks, cash, and clout. Those of you who saw my debate with James Hake of the Hake Report may remember that I view gender and gender roles essentially as cultural ideals. To me, men and women are ideas. They are boxes into which complicated human beings are shoved by society, whether it's a good fit or not. But in essence, a war against women is a war against ideas, and it is more or less a fool's errand because, to quote Alan Moore, ideas are bulletproof. So then, if I am to answer yes to this proposition, it cannot be a war in the literal sense. Instead, when I say yes, there is a war on women, I mean something very specific. I mean, women as a social group are, on average, the victims of discrimination, both systematically by authorities and laws, and socially by norms and widely held prejudices. And this discrimination is somewhat unique to their gender, which is to say, women are discriminated against in ways that men are not. Now, the truth of this proposition should be plainly obvious to everyone. And to be frank, I think on a certain level it is, hence the need for political reactionaries to mount hysterical, pun very much intended, response to attempts by activists and institutions to ameliorate this problem and redress these grievances. Some people just cannot handle change, and that moral and intellectual failing leads them to some very dark places, which I hope we will avoid tonight. But if I'm to do this, I need to prove my case. And so what needs to be brought up is the concept of structural violence, which in short is a form of indirect violence that results from the social structures and institutions harming people by preventing them from meeting their basic needs, or in some other way imposing on their basic human rights in a way that harms them physically and mentally. This is obviously happening. The most glaring way in which it is expressed is the most recent ruling on Roe v. Wade. The USA already has huge problems with maternal mortality, the worst in the developed world and nearly twice that of our nearest neighbors, France and Canada. And by direct use of state violence to force an unwilling woman to remain pregnant against her will, many women will lose their lives, while many more will experience exponential hardships due to this foolishness.
2 minutes. Thank you very much for that, Brent. Well,
and there's quite a bit more.
Okay. Yeah. I got some things to say about that. Am I good to jump in here? Yeah.
100%.
I mean, I'm surprised that when you said that the war on women is a war on ideas, I thought we were actually going to talk about the kind of social treatment of women. And I'm surprised you jumped straight into laws, especially considering, if we look at the legal system, women are far more likely to get shorter prison sentences for the same crime as men. When we come to hiring practices.
Well, you'll notice I said laws that relate to
do want to just keep the interruptions to a minimum.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to hiring practices, they're more likely to be given favorable treatment due to things like affirmative action. And then to bring up Roe v. Wade as a aspect of the war against women, the Roe v. Wade and certainly conservatives' position on it has absolutely nothing to do with women and has everything to do with whether a fetus is a human being or not. That's the discussion, not are we going to oppress women or not. It's do we need to prevent murder in this case or not, which is what conservatives believe. And it's always an extremely disingenuous thing, in my opinion, when people bring up things like ectopic pregnancies or when they bring up maternal mortality. I cannot think of a single case where a Republican lawmaker, Republican commentator, anyone who is against abortion has stated that we should let a mother die if there is some sort of complication that requires an abortion. That has never been an argument from the right wing. That has never been an argument from people promoting laws against abortion. There has always been space for things like treatments against ectopic pregnancies or treatments to help the mother to survive in those cases. So I think all of the points that you brought up in your opening statement are a bit moot for this discussion.
Can I respond, or does somebody else need to talk?
I think we're doing opening statements. Well, I'll go first. Even though I'm conservative, I kind of have a different viewpoint. I think there's a war on men and women, and I think that you can just prove it by, you say, how is there a war on women if you're on the conservative side? Well, you look at Leah Thomas, who swam on the men's team for 3 years, was ranked 457th, and then got to take gender hormone therapies and compete against the women. So in my mind, that's against women. And also, I think abortion, letting women get an abortion is a war on women, because that's actually killing half the babies would be women. So that's actually murdering women. And then on top of that, the idea of feminism is a war on women by making women work in the workforce their whole life instead of having a family. I think women are meant to be mothers. It's their job to have babies. It's their job to do traditional family roles. And so this whole feminism movement is a war on women. Now, obviously, I think it's, the trans movement too is a big war on women, because it's 72 genders versus men and women. So I would say that equally, that men and women, biologic males and biological females have a war against him, against whatever you want to call it, maybe the gay mafia. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But it's there is a war waging on biological sex, because they want every kid to be indoctrinated and sexualized at a young age so that they have gender confusion and body dysmorphia. And so that they take, hormone blockers or puberty blockers and change their, gender for the rest of their lives. So I think when you look at the entire gender war, they can't even define what is a woman. They had to change it in Webster's dictionary to the opposite of a man, basically. So yes, there's a war on both biological sexes. And I think it's pretty simple. I know Brenton won't agree with this, but they said in Kindergarten Cop, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. And I think it's that simple. So I think there is a war on both sexes. Even though I'm conservative, I think there's a bigger war on men, but I still think there's a war on biological females.
Yeah, if I could jump in on that. I also am inclined to say that there is a war on women. And before I knew the exact topics, how this debate would be broken down, I also interpreted it to be a discussion about like transgender rights. And I think that if you go and ask these people, these lefty types like Vosh, and they will outright tell you that their goal is to abolish gender. I've had these debates with these people, and I think that that's a real mistake. I think that there are innate differences between men and women, behaviorally as well as biologically. And I really despise that the transgender identity and like whether or not dysphoria exists within some population has been like weaponized as a way to destroy the concept of gender. Like, moreover, I think that when you look at the ways in which women are discriminated against in like the workplace and whatnot, I think what you find is that really there are these innate differences and they're contributing towards lower pay, but for very good reason. Like women, I think, hold a civilizational burden to have children and to care for children when they're in infancy, and that's difficult and it's hard and it should be lauded, and that's why you see these lower wages. I also think that like there's real virtue in having boundaries to the gender identities that exist. Like I think that in order for something to have meaning or value, it can't be something that anyone can just opt into. It has to have restrictions. And so I think the desire to destroy those boundaries and those restrictions is also a kind of desire to like destroy the potential virtue within the archetypes themselves. But I think that's just one side of it. And the other side of it is that you have people who have like rightly observed that there are all these difficulties with incorporating women into the workforce and into politics. But I think that like they're just taking this in the complete wrong direction, and they want another kind of war on women where they want to bring them back to like medieval times, bring them back into the home. And while that's valuable in some ways, I think that in the modern economy where human capabilities extend far beyond just your muscle strength. Women have a lot to contribute politically and, intellectually and whatnot. And what we need to do is learn how to manage female pathology, which scales across the internet, in the same way that we've learned to manage male pathology through our institutions. And we need to do that so that women can contribute without also corrupting or making the public square worse.
Anybody from the right?
Yeah,
I'll say mine. I'll do it first.
Hang on. We already heard from a girl on the right. You're on the right. You needed to let me go first. All right, thank you. Well, I'm sure you have a lot of great things to say. Okay, but I want to talk first. So, my position, I guess, is probably the most extreme on this side. I know I thought I was arguing against Lauren Southern actually on this debate.
I know, aren't you disappointed?
I am.
We haven't talked since the Boogaloo stream, my friend. We got to chat.
It's been a long time. Well, we talked a little bit during the Thought War as well. I don't know if you recall that, but we talked a little during that as well. But so anyway, so I'm kind of the oddball, I guess, in the group. Good morning, by the way, and thanks everybody for being here. I think it's going to be a fun debate. I just want to say
did you just say good morning?
Yeah, I just woke up like 10, 20 minutes ago. So
classic gamer move.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Disgusting. Yeah, you want to talk
exactly.
a lot about disgusting. Your whole life is disgusting. But anyway, so
listen, I woke up.
I want to say this. I want to say this. We'll get into that later. I think that there is not a war against women. I think the war is against men. And I think the problem is that we are not waging a war against women. I think that women are the author of most of the problems in the society. I think that women's liberation, starting a couple hundred years ago, is the beginning of the end of Western civilization. I think that women being educated, women going into the workforce, I think that women raising young men, I think that prostitutes running our country and women being elevated through affirmative action, I think it's completely wrecking the country in basically every way. I think that women essentially have kind of two trajectories in life. They can be mothers and prostitutes. I think those are really the main tracks throughout history that women become. They're really defined by their sexuality as opposed to men. Men are sort of intermittently sexual. Women are thoroughly sexual, and they're defined by that relationship with men. And so I think they can either do that within the binds of marriage and do that being a mother and having children, or they could do that selling their sexuality in some way, which is kind of what they do all the time in the modern society. And we don't think of it always that way, but if you look at it, that's kind of what they're doing. So I would say that there's not a war against women. Women are being elevated. And we talked about this in the last one. I think Alex Stein and Doobie and our girl Stardust were there for that one. I think the war is against men. And that's really the problem. The war should be against women and sort of reducing their role in society back to, I think, their biological disposition, which is to be mothers and homemakers. So that's my position. But I recognize that's probably not the position of anybody else on our side, but that's my position.
So my position is basically to say that elevation you speak of is actually the war on women. Women are being sold this idea that you're going to be happier, more fulfilled being in HR rather than, say, just going to university just to go to university and then, being a mother after, because a lot of people just do that. A lot of women just go to school just to, maybe meet a mate. That's a great place to meet someone. If you want someone with economic standing, is someone, maybe a doctor, a lawyer who is going to go to university. And that's a good way of meeting them and also being socially elevated, I guess, is the way a lot of, people used to think of university. And a lot of women used to go to university just for social elevation rather than a career. But women are now being sold this idea that you're not going to be fulfilled. You're going to be depressed if you stay at home. You're going to be depressed if you don't have a career, when a lot of times we see women are actually, once they've gone up in that career, they hit their mid 30s, they haven't had a child yet. And that's kind of when this depression kind of starts lingering in, of the idea of, I'm not married yet. I'm not, in this position that, say, a lot of society would have said I should be, and I kind of want to be, but now I can't. So the war on women is the idea being sold to women that a career is more fulfilling than other aspects of womanhood that you would generally think of being part of womanhood.
Any thoughts from Doobie or Stardust?
Sure, I can give my statement. So I myself would probably not use the language that there is a war on women, but there is a long history in most places of socially and legally restricting women's rights and freedoms. And while things have gotten massively better through the decades for women, there are still areas where women lack the agency and freedom that men have. As far as this idea about whether women should work or not, it has rarely been the case in history that women didn't work. In fact, the only people who actually had that privilege were wealthy women. And in a lot of traditional societies, it wasn't just women who worked, but children worked too. So that's that whole idea
Homemaking
of women
is a job. Just putting that out there.
I understand that.
A job.
I understand that, but if we're talking historically, right? It's beyond homemaking. Women historically did work unless they were wealthy. When they were wealthy, they were able to be a homemaker primarily. But in most cases, a woman and their children would work from a very young age. And I don't deny that men face unique problems as well. However, the problems that men face, like stifling emotions, higher suicide rates, failure to be believed as sexual assault victims, are not privileges that benefit women.
Yeah, if I can jump in really quickly after Stardust, like my great grandmother, her mother gave birth to her in a field, and then like wrapped her in a towel, took her into the house, went back out, and like finished the day's harvest. Yeah. So yeah,
and children
absolutely work.
Yeah, and decades ago, children
that's a different kind of working, because you're working on your property, on your.
But working in the farm is very labor intensive. Yeah, it's much more labor intensive than a lot of jobs today. So.
Well, yeah, but that's the essence of labor. We're selling the idea to women that you want to, just write emails for the rest of your life, and that's going to be, more fulfilling than say having kids and working in the field and actually owning something.
I mean, we could say the same thing about men. Maybe it would be more fulfilling for a lot of men to just work in the field and not be inside and typing emails and all that.
Well,
right?
Everyone is sold this. Everyone is sold the idea that just like, maximizing money so you can buy Funko Pops or whatever is like the key to success in life. And I think most people realize as they get older that that's not true. And a lot of women who are very like career oriented, they realize this and then they drop out of their career earlier than men do.
I think we're all agreeing that capitalism is garbage, which I'm 1000%.
I'm not agreeing to that.
I don't think that capitalism is garbage, but I do think there's something to the idea that there is, when you talk about, okay, women have to be mothers in the home with the children all day and men have to go out and work the wagey 9 to 5. That also isn't tradition. I think that's a kind of silly idea that the right have developed because they base a lot of their social constructs around the 50s. Whereas I think, the whole idea of the nuclear family, it kind of defeats the community. It should be a community working together, mothers all working and raising children together. The men should be including their children in their work. It used to be super common for kids to go out and, work with dad in the field, go on the tractor, enjoy that, partake in that. And the idea that, women should just be in this box where they spend all day with the kid, it's good. It's fun. It's wonderful. Also takes away from a father's fullness of life where he would want to go and bring his child to enjoy whatever his work life was. But it's definitely been a restructuring of our society of making everyone work in cubicles and have this 9 to 5 travel, got to make work my entire life instead of family and community and working with the people around me. So there are real things that you guys are pointing to.
What I would say is that you may not be wrong that men used to spend more time with children because children would go out and work with them and children used to work at a much earlier age, but there are benefits to children not working, right? Like workplace injuries. I'm not saying
bring your child to, the factory.
Yeah, but again, it used to be that like
bringing your son to fix the car with you,
There would be like, it used to be that there would be like people who would work in tobacco and you'd have children as young as like 6 helping, work with tobacco and stuff like that. So I think there are benefits to children not working anymore, but I definitely see that.
Saying, but
I see. I may have misinterpreted, so I'm sorry.
No, Lauren, you mentioned that
before you start, Brent, Stardust, if you can turn your audio down just a slight smidge, and then Brent, go ahead.
Yeah. Lauren, so I'm hearing you complain about people getting forced into cubicles and having their traditional ways of life destroyed and people being forced to work outside of the home. Yeah, that all of that is happening, and they're being forced to work for people who aren't them, who own property, who are capitalists. I'm not seeing how you're not making the connection between the fact that all of these things you don't like are all these things you don't like are being done for profit.
Real capitalism has never been tried. No, of course there are problems with capitalism. It's a complex, broken system, but it's the best we've got. And a lot of what we're dealing with is corporatism and also government pushes and social pushes towards certain types of work styles and certain workforces. And a lot of, the big companies with the cubicles tend to be far more favored by governments and government contracts than small businesses, which families used to be able to run together.
Of course,
but
because if you're powerful, you take control of the state.
A lot of that has to do with government intervention. So
yes,
when we see all these policies come into place that are promoting corporatism and kind of hurting these smaller community jobs and small businesses, you don't sit there and blame capitalism. You can, but that's a really weak point in my opinion. Capitalism is a part of it.
I would disagree with you. I think it's a very strong point. You just
don't understand it. It's a lot of social issues. Oh, I just don't understand, I guess. This is the real
it's a tough thing to get your mind wrapped around. It takes years to figure out.
Well, instead, because of capitalism, instead of people working for... Sorry.
But I don't think we've heard from Doobie at all. Doobie, any thoughts?
I do have thoughts, actually.
Go ahead.
So I think as we just, I was actually really interested in what you guys were saying. So I think as we just heard here, I think there's room to argue that there is an attack on women from both sides of the political spectrum. Right? I think that if you're on the right, you could argue that the concept of womanhood itself is being dismantled in academia through a gender ideology that's being pushed on children in schools, being pushed on the rest of us through corporate policy and censorship. And if you're on the left, you could argue that the overturning of Roe v. Wade is the latest attack on women from a religious right wing attempting to reassert its ownership of women's bodies, lifestyles, etc. I think that those positions, though, are kind of missing the point. I think the truth is that women have historically been socially and politically oppressed, or at least conditioned to fill subservient roles to further like a patriarchal norm in our society. Whether or not you think that's a good thing, right? That they're supposed to be in these roles naturally, is I think just going to boil down to like your preferences and your upbringing, whatever the fuck. But I think that the reality is that we've seen that oppression kind of fall away. Well, I'd consider it oppression. We've seen that fall away. And I'd argue that there is like a overcorrection in some areas where you have women getting basically affirmative action that's pushing them into academia and leaving men behind in a lot of cases, or celebrating them and attacking the concept of masculinity while pushing women forward as a girl boss, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think there has been overcorrection in some areas, right? And there is like work to do in other areas, but I don't think it makes sense to call any of this war on women. It just seems like the culture is changing. Our understanding of women's role in society is changing. Their understanding of like men's role in society is changing. But there's not a war here. It's just
the question is it for the better?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
going to boil down to. I think that's going to boil down to. So Nick, for example, Nick would probably say that, hey, you teaching these women that they should be out there grinding away 9 to 5 and not at home raising children, keeping the house clean, et cetera, learning all the good things that come with motherhood, et cetera. You teaching them to go out and do that, to leave their households and to go out and slave away for these capitalist scumbags or whatever. That's actually an attack on women. Right. That's not you presenting them more possibilities. That's you giving them chains in the disguise of like freedom and like choices or options or whatever the fuck. Right. All you're really doing is enslaving them to the same capitalist like monster that the rest of us are enslaved.
So then, wouldn't that not be a war on women?
I think the women should be enslaved, but just by their husbands instead of
Well, okay, but the point that Doobie is making is that, again, in response to what Lauren just said, the point that Doobie is making is that women are in that way, they're basically in the subservient role, right? And it may be true. Yes, it certainly is true that there are disadvantages to being a man in society, but those disadvantages for men often negatively affect women in addition, right? Whereas the disadvantages towards women don't really affect men in the same way.
But the thing is that women's role historically has been that way because women are cooperative and men are competitive. That is distilled down the essence of the male and
Well,
female
women are
nature.
competitive
There is
against one
research
another,
that-
though.
Hang on,
You
hang
can't
on.
think of,
Not.
forget
Oh,
about
man.
that.
Cooperative. They're side by
Nick.
side.
But not
Men
to one
are-
another.
Nick,
Women
I
are
actually-
extremely
Men are
competitive.
side by
No,
side.
No,
just
like
to be sure
women
that we
do.
can-
If you
Just
pull
to be
them
sure we
Nick,
hear
are you
everybody,
married?
Everybody's talking simultaneously, and then nobody can hear anybody. So just one at a time.
Yeah,
Can I
Nick, are
ask
you
Nick a
married?
question?
Yeah, I'm married to the game.
Shut the fuck up. No, you're not. Now,
Well,
here's
no
the
need
thing.
to cuss.
What-
No need to
first
cuss.
of all, what
Brendan.
you're
Let's
saying-
keep it
Marie,
clean.
did you have a
Keep
question,
it
Marie?
clean.
Marie,
Yeah.
did you
No,
have a
I
question?
didn't have a
No,
question.
I had a question.
Lauren, go ahead, Lauren.
No, Nick, I assume you agree there are outliers to that rule. Like there are men who are more cooperative than competitive, although outliers, vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah,
betas.
we have this trans individual in the debate, and you'd certainly have lesbians. So yeah, of course there are outliers, but try about the general rule.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm wondering within if let's say society had a general rule that were in line with your ideals for what you want society to be like, would you still allow for room for outliers? So like, let's say a woman who's like a Margaret Thatcher type really wants to partake in business or whatever, and maybe she's even, infertile, can't have kids, no one wants to marry her. Would you still allow space in your society for her to, kind of partake?
No. And I think that historically, that's not true. I think historically these exceptions are not allowed. And I think there's a danger in allowing the exceptions because in cases like that, it almost concedes the principle, and it's unfortunate, but society is clunky, and these are the kinds of things where you can't tell the society, well, women are mostly like this, but some are not really, and some can do what they want.
The problem is that
Unfortunately,
society
has-
Wait, let him
creates its
finish.
own
Let him
ideals.
finish.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for
Agreed.
sticking up for me like
I'm-
that. So
Doing my
I
best.
think that women should not be telling men what to do. And I think it sets a bad example. I think that, and then this is what you'll hear all the time from women and from feminists is, well, what about, the biker girl? What about the girl that is really good at math or whatever? And yeah, that's great and everything. But because of that, we've set this example where now everybody thinks that there's no principle at work here, that we're all individuals, that everybody's got a limitless capability. And so everybody should have a limitless opportunity. And that's created a completely co-ed egalitarian society. There needs to be a society that is clearly bifurcated between the domain of the men and the women. And I agree with you. I think that you're right about the nuclear family, and you're right about sort of what we consider women's work. And I'm not saying women should be necessarily in the house, but they should be in the domain of women. They should be the nest builders with the other women in the community, like they were in the
Nick, are you
ancient
just-
days and historically, but they
Okay,
should
but
not
Nick,
be
if we're
working
going to
side by
ancient
side with
days-
men as
If we go
lawyers
to
and doctors.
ancient days and historically, right, we could look to Greece where men were fucking little boys' spies, right? And this was totally socially acceptable, right? So I don't know why we'd appeal to history and how things used to be in ancient societies, right? We're in 2022, and I don't want to just a current year meme, but it is a current year. Why would we be shaping our society based on shit that happened 2,000 years ago?
I'm not saying
mean,
that we
I'll
should
go
base it
with-
on that because it's old. I'm saying that that's the. I'm
Well, yeah,
saying
well,
that
give me a reason.
that's the
But Nick
model.
would
I'm
say
saying
because
that
it
the
worked
nuclear
for a long
family is
time.
anomalous compared to
Yeah.
the long view of history. We should do these things because they're consistent with our nature, not necessarily because they're old. Although they are old. and
Why
they
isn't
survived
pederasty consistent
because
with our
they're
nature?
consistent. What's that?
Yeah, we could
Why isn't
argue that a lot of
pederasty consistent with our nature? In ancient Greece, older men would take young boys as apprentices, and part of that relationship was them putting
I want
olive
to
oil
jump
on the
in.
young
I have
boys'
this
thighs
whole
and
thing
fucking
to
them,
say, but
right? So like,
I'm not sure what that has to do with.
Yeah, can I bring the
This thing-
conversation
this
back
thing-
on
this
track
thing-
here?
ancient
Well, look, if we're
traditional
making an
thing that
appeal
men
to the
did-
way that
All right,
things
let's-
used to
let's
be
do
in
this because
tradition.
we have minimum
Listen,
time.
I got 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Go for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Lauren.
Nick, I think you might be setting yourself up for failure there, because what you're going to do is there's always going to be these outliers that exist, and you're going to have women that are genuinely completely miserable in this sort of family role, right?
Like
Yes,
you?
they will be the exception. No, I love being a mother. They will be the exception, and they're going to want to read. They're going to want to partake, and necessarily in their misery, they'll probably start some sort of feminist uprising so that they can partake, rather than naturally just being allowed to partake where and when they can and compete with men where and when they can, while the natural social order still stays in place within your ideals.
The thing is, though, women cannot compete with men. If women try to compete with men, they would physically get killed. There's no woman.
Depends on how they're.
It depends on what arena they're
in. I want to make one point. I want to just make one point though, that women do have a lot of power though. They hold it in their pussy, because this is why there's an old Chinese proverb that says a key that'll open every lock is a master key, but a lock that will open with any key is a shitty lock. So what I'm saying is women, even a fat, ugly woman can get laid a million times, but a fat, ugly guy can't. So women do have, when you talk about the war on women, they actually have a lot of power of the puss. So that's something men don't have.
Yeah,
that's
I think there's a point that Nick is making that's really interesting here. And it goes back to like the historical reasons for why women were not involved in much of the economy. And it's because for like much of human history, women could not effectively contribute to most important economic and political things. Women could not wield a sword as well as men. They could not till the fields as well as men. And so like it makes perfect sense that you wouldn't like have women leading kingdoms, because the majority of the population would not have built up respect for her through like going to battle with her, right? But the fact of the matter is now is that like our modern economy has shifted such that we rely less on physical muscles and the economy relies more on intellectual developments. And so like there's all of this research into how women exist in STEM and in various fields of higher learning and contribution to the economy. And the reality is that like women they still don't take up all of those high prestigious spots. They're not the ones winning the awards. Men are still doing that, but that's not to say that women aren't contributing anything. In fact, women's like contribution to the economy now is massive. And if you want to have a civilization that is powerful, you need to harness all of it. And so here's the thing. You can have a civilization that has women in the home and they're going to be great homemakers. But when you compare that to a culture and a civilization that knows how to utilize women as homemakers and as mothers, but also allows them to contribute to the economy when they're able to, that civilization will be far superior to the one that doesn't. And it's really that simple at the end of the day. We want to create things that last. And the way you do that is you find a way to include women.
Here.
Okay, wait. So, sorry, I'm really curious about Nick's thoughts on this, because you say, allow women to compete. But the problem always has been when we allow women to compete, we do have to give them too often like a handicap to allow them to compete with men, where Nick was saying women will generally lose. So what I would say my argument is, Nick, is let them lose. Allow them to compete in egalitarian society and let them lose and let people learn that social rule on their own without any of the handicaps. Sure, if you want to go join the WWE or whatever wrestling thing against men, great, go die. Go join the army, get shot on the front lines. Let women lose without the handicap and people will learn the rule. And then the women who are absolutely exceptional will actually have done so of their own accord, and no one will have to look at them twice and think, hey, you're only here because you're a woman and the government forced you into this position.
Yeah, there's an unspoken. There's a spoken assumption here that is being made by a lot of people, both by Nick and Lauren. Poor human nature, what horrible crimes have been committed in thy name. Every fool, from king to policeman, from flat-headed parson to visionless dabbler in science, presumes to speak authoritatively of human nature. The greater the mental charlatan, the more definite his insistence on the wickedness and weakness of human nature. Yet how can anyone speak of it today, with every soul in a prison, with every heart fettered, wounded, and maimed? Emma Goldman.
What?
The fact of the matter is that this idea that the women are homemakers and mothers, like, yes, they are literally mothers. But the fact of the matter is that we have been on this planet as a species for 250,000 years. For 244,000 years, we did not have the state and lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers. And if we look both at the historical fossil record and at contemporary hunter-gatherers today, you find that these are the most gender equal societies on the planet, because everyone has to be educated in every aspect of the culture. So really, we're talking, when you guys are talking about this being somehow like women's immutable essence, it's just not true. It is objectively wrong. It just feels like an immutable essence because
who did the gathering?
Who
did the gathering though?
They both did. Everyone in the
I don't think
the hunting and gathering.
It depends.
The hunters left for weeks on end, and the gatherers had to go every single day to feed the tribe or whatever, the community at the time. But the hunters, this is actually
this. It's not true.
One sec. I do want to hear from Stardust.
I think this is like an old idea.
Yeah. So So it depends on the society, right? Because believe it or not, we live in a very diverse place, and even traditionally things are pretty diverse. But again, I would reiterate that even in these more traditional societies, maybe women were more confined to certain types of work, but they still worked. Right? And children worked too. And just because things, like Doobie made this excellent point earlier, just because things were a certain way in traditional society doesn't mean that they're good. Children also died a whole lot more. Children also participated in dangerous work, environments. So yeah, tradition does not mean that it's going to be better for the family or for the children. But I would say that. Actually, never mind. I'm not.
Okay, I haven't heard anyone make the argument that tradition is good because of tradition, or that things are good because it's.
It sounded like that's
what
you were saying.
No.
Yeah, it sounded.
He
Yeah.
said exactly.
Well, that's what I was asking.
It's like anything else where if you flex
He said,
a
I'm not
muscle for long
arguing
enough,
for
it's
these
like
things
hard to
because they're
unflex
old
it.
or because they're
That's what
tradition. He said
using
he's
like a
arguing
different
for them
voice
because
is
they are
like.
in line with human nature.
So
we have
Yes,
to
which he doesn't know.
Well,
He's just
but also he's basing
you
it.
have to make an argument. You have to make an argument.
Brenton,
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Human
Sure,
nature.
Lauren, if I can respond to you, right?
Just saying,
seriously,
you guys
I
think
don't-
it's
what is
good
with
because
you
it's
guys?
old.
Okay, so just Brent, no offense, but you have a problem of interrupting people. So stop it. And then I think the last time before you interrupted, Lauren, I think you were speaking, and then Stardust will come to you after, and then last will come to Brenton after everybody else.
Oh no, yeah. I was basically just saying that the point being made here isn't that tradition is good because it's tradition, quite the opposite. In fact, I think I've attacked the idea that we need to emulate the 50s. The idea here is what society works best in line with human nature. So the argument has to be around what is the nature of a woman and what is the nature of a man. Are women more timid? Are women more suited in better roles that are more towards being a mother, towards being et cetera, et cetera? Are men more suited as hunters? I'd rather hear the leftists on the panel engage with that concept rather than this appeal to you guys just think, it's good because it's tradition, because I haven't heard that argument made once.
Okay, so I guess to respond to that then, I guess what I would say is that, there's no doubt that there are differences between men and women. There's no doubt that men and women gravitate to different things, even in the most, gender equal countries. You'll see men and women actually diverge even more than they do normally in which careers they choose, right? But they're still choosing careers. So I'm not denying that there are certain trends based on your biology and based on your sex, right? But there are always going to be outliers, and I think these outliers are a lot more common than we give credit to. And there are ways that also we benefit from women being in the workplace. There have been studies that show that women might be making better doctors than men. That's all. That's what I would say in response to that. So.
Yeah, let me just jump in here and say, where all this comes from with nature. It comes from biology. It comes from what we know about biology and what we know about physicality. And, you can throw your head back like that, but women are weaker than men. And so, Lauren says, well, why don't we just let the men compete with the women? And, that makes sense if we're talking about a controlled, sort of constructed competition with rules and a referee and things like that. But the world is not like that. The state of nature is not like that. There are not rules, and there's not a referee, and there's not a sort of artificial surrogate goal. There is just all against all. And the kinds of societies that emerge from that throughout all of history, everywhere. And I love when leftists bring this up. They're like, well, we found a village in the Amazon jungle where there was a woman priestess or something like that. It's like, okay, but every other civilization, whether it's the Arabs or it's the Russians, Chinese, Japanese, Europeans, it's male kings, it's male generals, it's male dominated, male superpowers. That was the Soviet Union, that was Rome, that was America.
Turn on your brain.
That's all of it.
Why? You need to go a step further.
Primarily
Why?
that kind of
It's because
situation
men were able
prevails
to
because
contribute
men
muscle power.
are physically stronger. And when it comes down to it in the world,
exactly.
men can make women do what they want because they are stronger. Also, and this goes back to the ancient role of men as well as, and you could say, oh, well, we have the United Nations now, so strength doesn't matter. Men are historically the hunters. Men are the ones that went out and fought the game. Men are or fought to kill the game and bring that back home to eat. And so men are also smarter than women as well. Men can outsmart women. They can also beat women up. And that's why men are the kings, the philosophers, the mathematicians, engineers. And again, the only reason why this is not the case anymore, the only reason why we have this kind of, there's this challenge from women in the society is because they're being given affirmative action. They're essentially being paid by the state. It's essentially a subsidy. There's all kinds of quotas in academia. There's quotas in the workplace. And essentially, it's like the government is paying these people to be these things. In any kind of normal society, there's no way they would be able to compete with men. So the question is not, we'll let women compete with men. If you subtracted all the sort of constructs of society, men would win every competition and they beat women up if they couldn't. And so they'd win those too. It's only that we have this kind of managerial state where they're enforcing and trying to create an artificial equality where there is no such thing, not in fact, not in theory. And so if we took all of that away, the sort of natural thing would resume. And it's always fighting back. You see that in women's preferences as children. You see that even in preferences for women as adults. Women's nature and rebellion against what's being pushed on them artificially. It's irrepressible.
Want to bump it over to Doobie or...
Oh, I got 5 more minutes. So can I respond to that?
Sure.
Sorry. Nick, I was saying the opposite of what you just said. I'm saying allow women to compete in that free for all, and then allow people to naturally see them fail without the structure, without the rules. And then the women who are absolutely exceptional, if they succeed, they'll succeed because of their own merit. I am curious though, who do you think structured the society where women are getting all of this affirmative action? Because assuming that men are so powerful, which I do believe they are stronger and on average smarter, this is just statistical truths. Would there not be
he's gonna say the Jews.
Some sort of concept that it was men that created and structured the society to a degree, especially because they had power for so long? And perhaps the issue is less with all women causing this, but with some moral failing in men as well that allowed them to allow this civilization to persist.
It was the Jews, and Jews are feminine.
What's
that's
that say, guys?
That's frankly, that's just true.
Goodbye, my
okay. It was.
Thanks, we all lost our channels, Nick.
Yes.
Cannot. Yeah.
We're gonna move from this topic. I think Doobie, if you haven't spoken.
Okay, wait. So is this the Jews' fault, Nick, or is this women's fault?
It's my fault.
Let's not talk about. Let's go ahead, Doobie.
So I think it's kind of ridiculous that we're appealing to the fact that women were better suited to stay in the cave with kids in hunter-gatherer societies or behind walls or whatever the fuck. When we're communicating with each other, across the fucking planet in real time through esoteric lightning magic, and I'm a fucking frog, right? I don't understand. And again, maybe it works back then, right? Sure. But men don't need to go out and hunt mammoths anymore, right? There are plenty of jobs that need to be done to sustain our society that don't require physical strength. Our understanding of the roles of men and women, I think, are going to be molded by the circumstances we're in. And in the modern day, it's very beneficial to our society to have women involved in the workplace, in academia, and in politics. So give me a good reason. Give me a way that the gender roles and social norms of the caveman days or the medieval period are useful today. Why are they more useful than what we're doing right now?
Wait, I have to disagree with you that you don't think men need to be strong or even have strength in order to defend your well, you kind of did say there's no need for men,
I said men
to
don't
be
need to
able
go out and
to
hunt mammoths anymore, right?
Yeah.
We don't need to send people out every
you
day
said
to
they don't
hunt
need the physical
for food.
strength. They don't need that physical strength.
They don't.
Well, for
They can
most
get
jobs,
forces,
They
yes,
can buy,
you do.
They can buy a pistol.
We're not saying
you do.
You need
Suddenly,
a lot
Brock
less strength than you
Lesnar's running
used
at
to.
you. You can shoot him in the fucking face, right? It's fine.
But you need the strength in order to defend your property at the end of the
No,
day.
because usually
I would
you should
say
have
the strength
state.
needed
You
to
should
defend
have
your
the state
property is
protect
still
your
nothing
property.
in comparison to like going out and hunting and the endurance required to
enough-
go out and hunt for
You had a
long periods of
horse.
time.
You had a horse.
Who the fuck has a horse these days?
Yeah.
You
Like,
know,
I'm not-
Back
I'm
in the
not
day
horses.
when they did the hunting, they
Horses
were
suck.
hunting
the
on
war on
horseback.
women though.
So does anyone
confused
but
by
Horses
me?
suck compared to a car.
I do, Alex Stein.
Like,
we haven't heard
hunting is
from
not-
you in a while. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah,
It's
well,
usually
when we
just
talk about the
waiting.
strength, when we talk about the strength of men versus women, I mean, it's obvious that men are stronger than women, but I don't know how that necessarily, means there's a war on women because we're stronger. So I'm kind of confused why the argument's gone
I mean,
in that direction.
I keep making this point, and it's like I think it should be very apparent. And I think Doobie is like keying into this, which is that like the economy has changed such that women can contribute a lot more with a lot less muscle power. And when women are competing with men in a lot of these arenas, for example, like the intellectual arena of like publishing papers, right? Like that is not the kind of competition where you're worried about the physical safety of women if they're losing the competition, which is why I'm sympathetic to what Lauren Southern is saying when she's saying that like, just let women compete with men. Because like women can compete with men in the area of like STEM papers. And let's say women mostly lose because men are better at like the right tail of the distribution of intellectual competency. Let's say most women lose. Well, you're still going to have women who are contributing to the general advancement of science and knowledge in that case, even if they're not getting the most prestigious awards and papers. So like, I think that like what we really care about is just making sure that we are maximally utilizing every part of our culture to create the best kind of society we can. And the way to do that is to allow women to contribute in a way that doesn't necessarily take away from their child rearing and from their motherhood, which is totally possible.
If I can just, I just want to say real quick, James, people are saying that you should stop streaming on Twitch because I believe Nick is banned on Twitch. So.
Nick, are you okay with being on Twitch?
I don't care, but you know, if you don't want your channel to be banned,
I like to.
Why don't you say something earlier?
Let's let it fly. Go ahead. Oh, by the way, so Lauren has to go. So Lauren, any closing words before? Lauren's going to be replaced by someone who decided they would jump in on Lauren's behalf. But any last words before you do have to take off, Lauren?
Muted myself, woman moment. Yeah, I'm sorry I have to take off so quick. It would have been fun to stay around longer. I would have enjoyed. Well, I'll definitely be back on an evening where I have more time. Everyone, if you want to continue watching the stream, you can go to Modern Day Debate on YouTube. Check that out. I haven't quite figured out how to do a stream raid thing, so I'm sorry, my friend, but hopefully they'll find it. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. Thanks so much.
See you, Lauren.
Plug.
All right, cheers. Have a good one, guys.
See you, Lauren.
In just a moment, a surprise guest will be on, jumping in place of Lauren. So that'll take just a few minutes. In the meantime, do want to remind you folks, our guests, every single one of them, Taff, aka April, Brenton, Alex Stein, Doobie, Nick, Stardust, Marie, and our upcoming guest, and Lauren are all linked in the description. So if you'd like to hear more, you certainly can. If you click on their links below, that includes at the podcast, as every debate at Modern Day Debate is put onto the podcast within 24 hours. And one last thing in terms of channel introductions, want to say welcome. We hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from, whether you be politically left, politically right, you name it. We're glad you are here. There are many more juicy debates coming up. In fact, this Saturday, Richard Spencer and TikTok star Kendon Farr will be debating abortion. So you don't want to miss that one. Hit that subscribe button. And our new guest, our surprise guest, is jumping in right now. Welcome, Destiny.
No way!
Welcome,
wow, let's go.
Let's
Good to
go.
see you again.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Well, let's hear Destiny's opening statement. What's your statement?
Go for it.
What's the topic? What are we talking about?
Anything you'd
Is
like.
there a war on
War
women?
on
Talking
women.
about how much we hate
Right.
women.
What's
Okay,
the
fuck
last
that
thing-
statement. This is my, first of all, James, nice tattoo. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. Here's the society that we should build. Okay. All of you are wrong. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. I think this should be the goal. Okay. We have some sexual traits that are varied between men and women. That much is true. Men tend to be taller, men tend to be stronger, women might be gravitating more towards like caregiver type things, psychology, et cetera, et cetera. We can recognize that there are some realities here and accept that that is the case. But just because we have to acknowledge that there are some differences, I don't think that means that we have to build a restrictive society that prevents somebody from stepping outside of those differences. There might be a gay dude that's really fucking good at making certain types of shoes. Let him make shoes. He doesn't have to live the life of a fucking hunter-gatherer that's ready to shoot and kill criminals breaking into his wife's home. He could live with his boyfriend in San Francisco and make awesome clothes. There might be a woman out there who she does want to go into the military. She does the work. She lifts a lot. She's tall, fucking brand of chart or whatever. Let her fucking do it if she can. I think that we deprive not only individuals in our society of the ability to pursue the best life that they can, but we also deprive ourselves as a society of their talents by boxing them into these really rigid gender roles just because like 85 or 90% of people happen to fit.
Well, because of that, that's why we have the WNBA that nobody watches, Destiny. So thanks a lot.
Didn't you
dude.
say that you watched the WNBA in the debate with me?
I watch it because I crank it to it. I have a sexual fetish for female basketball players, but that's just me.
Good God.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's just a sexual, fetish.
You are one weird dude, Alex.
I didn't need to know that about you.
Well, I just like to let that be known that I'm into WNBA chicks, but everybody else isn't. I wish more people would be.
If women want to play in the WNBA, what's wrong with that? What, like, if you could have a world where there is a WNBA with someone willing to play basketball, why not have that world?
The problem isn't that there's a women's league. I think the problem that right-wingers have is that the government subsidizes these things. So like the government has rules about funding for like men and women's sports, and it's to the point where like these teams in college end up like recruiting women without their even knowledge, just putting them on the roster because they want to like get this funding. And like white women are like the #1 recipients of affirmative action. So I think what right wingers are saying is that like women should compete with men and have the freedom, this is what I'm saying, should have the freedom to participate in the economy and sports and etc. But they should do it on like an even playing field, and they shouldn't get
so like I think it's, I don't, by the way, you're wrong. I agree with what you're saying, but that's not what conservatives feel. That's going to be the Mott and Bailey bullshit argument they wheel out to try to pretend that's what they feel. But what they're really saying is, I think what they're saying is women are fundamentally equipped to do different things and they shouldn't even try to compete in the traditional domain of man. Now, if there was a conservative that said, listen, if women want to do these things, that's fine, but we should like trim back some of the affirmative action. Sure, that's fine. I think that in schools, we've seen that it has gone a little bit too far. Graduation rates are like 3-2 between women and men. It's like 60-40. That split is unreal. But the only reason we even know that split exists is because we used affirmative action to get there. You know, you could argue that affirmative action has gone too far today, for sure, but it sure as fuck wasn't reality that men are 10 times better at school than women. That's not true. And we've seen that even absent some affirmative action, women are just as competitive in school, if not more so than some men are, because there are things that men might be wired to do well, like hunt and gather, that makes them more predisposed to things like, say, ADHD that women don't have. Women make better students, right? You might say that men are these strong hunter-gatherers and they do all these type A things, quicker reflexes. That also might come with an increase of like risk-taking behavior. So when you look at a skill-based activity like driving, you might think like, wow, this is something that men are obviously better than women at. But then you look at accident rates and insurance rates, and maybe being like really physically capable doesn't make you a good driver. Maybe it's being a little bit slower and cautious. Maybe that's what makes you a safer driver. So I'm just saying that, like, yeah, if you want to trim back on some things, that's fine. But one, we can't pretend that affirmative action was a complete mistake, because we found out today that women are more capable than anybody thought ever possible. Number one, they've contributed to things like defense, space, engineering, medicine, et cetera, et cetera. And then two, if you do want to trim back a little bit, that's fine, but we should still leave the opportunity for people to compete where they can, so that we don't like deprive all of ourselves of those talents and contributions to society, in my opinion.
Here's the problem.
I agree 100% with
Hang on.
there.
We've heard from the pro-woman side, and Destiny, I'm very disappointed. I thought you hated women like I did, but you're coming in here and telling us they should be rocket ship designers and building missiles and things like that.
He's not being menaced by their sexuality. You seem to be.
You're right. He's not afraid of strong women. I know, because that's the basis.
Love strong women. God, what a great God. So great. Oh my God.
I'm not afraid of them. I just simply hate them. And I thought Destiny was on the same page, but that's okay. So the thing is, and I said this with Lauren when she was on earlier, I don't think the problem is necessarily that women are working, or even maybe the kind of work that women are doing. It really has to do with the segregation and the promotion of women in certain fields. The problem is the co-ed nature of what women are doing right now, that women are intermixed with men throughout the society. The problem is that women are pursuing career and education at the expense of marriage. And if you have a traditional view of sexuality and sexual morality, this is almost necessarily a problem. The more that women are educated, the more that women are in the workplace, the lower the fertility rate, the longer it takes for women to get married. This is a real problem for a society that's trying to retain sexual morality. It's a problem where men are supposed to express their sexuality in a virtuous way. And then also the problem is in some instances, the domains that women are in, that I think are a total construct of affirmative action. I think that, if women want to be, researching or whatever, I think you create a women's division of that, like you have a women's division of sports and women's division of everything. I think the principal objection is not that women create value in the society. Women can create value in society a lot of ways. I think that primarily that is through childbearing.
You did weasel the
in the old days, They would
not at all the
answer the
argument he
phones and
was
be the
making
secretaries and school teachers. And, I think that, again, when that's segregated, maybe that's appropriate. The question is maybe not necessarily could that be expanded to other things? I think the question is that being pushed to the detriment of motherhood? Is that being pushed to the detriment of regeneration of society? Is that being pushed too forcefully, artificially, or forced at all? And then the problem is when it's not segregated, does that create a problem with temptation, sexual assault, all this ambiguity that you see? Me Too movement, all of that is because of men and women working so closely together in the workforce. That's a source of adultery. That's a source of temptation.
I'm hearing a lot of the. I'm hearing a lot of.
You're interrupting again. You're interrupting.
Yeah.
Why are you interrupting?
I hate interrupting both of you, but just to hear from anybody that we haven't heard from in a while on the left side.
Yeah, so I again will say that it's not the case that women were just answering phones, or that historically women were just doing easy work. Women were working out in the farms. Actually, in fact, a large percentage of women still today in the global economy work in farms, and they have historically, and that's not easy work. These are 10-hour, 12-hour days. So it never was the case that women were not working or women were doing easy jobs. They were just doing different jobs than men. And when it came to things like farming, which is such a huge industry globally, that is just something that men and women both did, and children participated too.
But the farm is domestic.
I have to give a shout out to Destiny, because he proved his point perfectly. He said that there was a Mott and Bailey going on, and that's exactly what Nick did, because he started the conversation saying that we should enslave women, and now he's basically moved over to like mine and Lauren Southern's position.
Yeah, they should be. I think they should be property essentially, but
so say
but
that
should they not be able to?
That's
be
fine. That's good. But that's good.
Society?
I love that. I like that. Right? We can attack the Mott and the Bailey. Okay, that's fine. So moving the conversation one step further. Okay, this is something that we have to recognize. We're not having a conversation right now about women's roles in society. We're having a conversation about the structure of society and whether or not we want a more liberal world order where people kind of have a right to choose what they want to do, or if we want to have a more Christian nationalist. I don't want to say fascist, but like, because I'm not trying to be insulting, but if we should have a world order where people are kind of forced to inhabit these gender roles that are building good Christian societies. And the reality is that insofar as we live in a democratic society, people ought to have that ability to choose the path that they think is right for them. If you want to build a Christian community and you want to build a Christian family, you have the right to do that. And this is what makes things like capitalism and liberalism so great. A lot of different structures can exist within that structure. It's very flexible. Whereas in a Christian nationalist structure, the more liberal world order couldn't exist at all, because you guys would necessarily crush it through like legislation.
I totally disagree. I think currently the way we live is actually more of this sort of fascist sort of society where women are being told all the time, like, if you aren't working in the HR department, like, you will have no value. You're going to be depressed in 5 years. I think we actually have a more society trying to ingrain women not to want to pursue womanhood and family and doing all of these sort of things.
Well, if women,
I'm saying like more of that worldview he was discussing. I'm not saying personally, I think it's fascism. I think that's kind of the lens he put it.
What I'm saying is that we, in our society, the model society that we're supposed to build, it might be the case today that we push people too far to the left. That might be the case. But the answer to that isn't that we need to shove everybody into families and say, hey, you're going to be an incubator for 15 children because that's your role, because you need to breed more for the white race, which is the kind of the point of view.
But the issue is like right now, like everyone's saying, like, I talk to so many women and even men, the way in which they view having children is extremely toxic. They say your life is over. You have no freedom now.
Because that's what it means. Because that's what it means.
Societal thing.
No, that's what it means to have. That is
education. That is, yeah. So again,
that's what it means.
It doesn't have to mean your life is over and your freedom's over.
Yes, one toxic part.
Who has kids on this panel?
2 seconds. Just because
I have kids.
Okay. Yeah. So trust me, as an absentee father, I'm an expert on this. Okay.
Like children,
yeah. Okay. Hold on. So especially as a woman, but in most families, having children sets you on a different path in life. You do lose a lot of freedom, and you do lose the ability to do a lot of things you would have otherwise. Ask any man ever.
Yeah, but let me finish my thing.
Let me finish my statement. If you ask any man ever, Okay. Hey, do you want to give up the most important career years of your life to stay at home for 7 or 8 years to take care of a child? No man would ever accept that deal. Fuck no. I'm not like from 20 to 28. You want me to sacrifice my whole life? But that's the decision that we've kind of forced upon, or it's biologically forced upon women. You can't be surprised that given the opportunity to live another life, given the opportunity to pursue a life of your own, an identity independent of your family, that a lot of women would choose to do that. I don't think that's surprising. As a man, I totally understand that. And I think there are a lot of women that are coming to understand that as well. Women have made huge sacrifices because of the biological reality thrust upon them, where they have to sacrifice their life for men to be able to work and have a family. Women don't have the option to work and have a family. So given the ability to choose, I don't think it's that crazy that they would choose to do otherwise.
Yeah, I just think that
that's not my point. My point.
Stardust, just because she's been so patient. Go ahead, Stardust.
Yeah, I think also just the very fact, Marie, that you're kind of reinforcing something that's pretty toxic that actually leads to a lot of women feeling like they don't fit in with motherhood because they feel like they should be loving every part of motherhood. They should be loving their children when really women get sick of their children. They want to get out of the fucking house. Being around children 24/7 is driving them nuts, and that's totally normal as a parent. Like at a certain point, it's going to drive you up the wall.
Yeah.
Wait, I don't remember arguing that like you have to love every part of anything because life is hard in general. Like no one's going to be like, oh yeah, I love every part of my life. Like cleaning the toilets. Oh, great. I love that so much. No, I'm saying right now in society, the idea thrust upon couples, not even just women, not just men, couples, people who are choosing to be together. I will talk to couples about, hey, are you guys going to have kids? They're in their late 20s and they're like, no, I don't want my life to be over. Why does your life have to be over? Why can't you look at this as a new journey? My mom traveled the world with 2 kids and a dog.
Let's hear from
That is abstinence only education. That is literally propaganda that they have been fed by the school system growing up. That's why they're saying it like that. It's not true. You know it's not true. I know it's not true. But that's why.
I know, but it is being thrust upon a lot of people. And it is like the societal model that we are being presented,
because
as a young person. I don't know how old everyone is.
Hold on. Are you a Christian person?
Me? No, yeah. I'm like nothing. I'm like, I don't know.
Okay. I'm sorry. So I'm just trying to understand this. Okay. So when you have children, the life that you lived before is over. You have a new set of responsibilities. You have a new set of risks that you can and cannot take. And you have a new direction that you have to go down in your life. There's a new journey that you take. This, if you believe in a structure of a family, you necessarily believe that this is the case when you have children. If you're a couple, you make a lot of money. Is it DINK? They call it dual income, no kids. You're traveling like once every 3 months to go out of the country and everything. If you have children, that life ends. Now, some people make that choice.
It doesn't have to. I don't agree with that. I know
you're just wrong. You can disagree if you want, but you're just wrong.
It is not irresponsible to travel with a kid.
I know I'm right on this. It's obvious.
Yeah,
obviously,
you need to make sacrifices.
You don't. Yeah, you
of course, you're not going to not make sacrifices. But when you get into a couple, of course, that single life you live is gone. That's just part of life, is having new chapters of life.
I think what you're saying is that it's a good sacrifice. So like,
yeah, some people can make that choice.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think that we are propagandized to a certain extent to believe in this kind of like consumerist way of living that is very like consumptive and just like we make as much money as possible to like spend it on expensive travel and whatnot. I think a lot of people do like miss out on that family building. So I think you could make the argument that it's a good sacrifice because what you're sacrificing is this very like temporary sort of pleasure of consuming things for building something greater. But like it is ultimately a big change, and it must be if you want to provide what is necessary.
And currently, a lot of people think we're like living in downtown Chicago is a lot more fulfilling than say getting like a little house that has like a nice yard and having a garden and having a family. A lot of people look at that because of the way in which society is moving, of like having no kids, and
so like let them do it.
Yeah, of course, for some people,
on the life
that's
stage,
the outlier.
And we live in a democratic society. You have to make that argument. It's the onus is on you. If you believe that's a lifestyle that other people ought to live, then the onus is on you to prove it. Like show like, hey, this is a lifestyle that's more fulfilling. You either preach this through your communities, you preach it through your churches, you do it through the media that you have people engage in, whatever you want, make the argument for that lifestyle. And there will be people that'll be like, you know what? I want to make the sacrifice. I want to have a kid. I want to get rid of like what I'm doing, in the past. But you can't just expect everybody to automatically throw away what is otherwise. It could be like really fabulous, really fun, really carefree lifestyles and say like, because we need need to keep breeding to like forward our race, or because there's some like weird imperative, like religiously or biologically or whatever. Otherwise, you can't just say that people have to do that if you can't make the argument for it.
Well, I can make the argument, and I would say,
before you do that, I'd like to just clarify something.
Hang on, can I jump in here? We've heard from
no,
the opposition
let Jimmy
for a
do it. He
long
hasn't
time.
spoken for a while.
Thank you. Yeah,
All
fuck
right.
you. I love you. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So Marie, so let's say we were to grant you everything you said, right? Hey, and I think we did kind of earlier, right? We said, hey, maybe there's some overcorrection happening in some parts of society. We went to like academia, but maybe people are being encouraged not to settle down until they're like too far in their adulthood or whatever the fuck. Maybe you're correct about this, right? But how does that amount to there being a war on women? So people being encouraged to take pursue lifestyles that you think are detrimental. How does that amount to there being a war on women in this country?
Well, I wasn't really making that argument, but that argument can be made that if we are putting women down this path of being in HR and thinking that's going to create happiness, and then they just get so far along, we're having children.
But we're not really putting them down
become
this path.
more unsafe.
Oh, yeah, but how
Really?
hey,
Like, I really do think we are, because when there's all these influencers.
Just to be sure we hear both of you, just to be sure you're separate.
Well, I'm just saying, how does selling a lifestyle, which is basically what's happening, it's just like, hey, don't settle down and have kids when you're 18 years old. Maybe explore your options, maybe pursue a career, whatever the fuck. They're basically just selling a lifestyle, and some people agree they like the product that's being sold to them, so they pursue it. And so how does that, them choosing of their own free will to go down this lifestyle path that you think is going to lead to them having like a long-term negative outcomes or whatever, how is this us forcing anything onto them? They can choose, like Destiny said, to do the trad wife thing. They can choose to have 10 kids, start helping out kids the moment they hit 18 years old. Right? We're not saying that, hey, you can't do the trad wife thing, or you should be shamed for doing the trad wife thing. We're just saying, hey, you shouldn't try to force people into boxes, and we should provide the options and let people go where they want to go.
No, I'm not
Absolutely,
arguing
you're
that
here.
you shouldn't, that like this is something like you should force upon people. I'm actually arguing that the opposite is actually in a way being societally forced onto people. That was my argument. I'm not saying we should force anything. I'm arguing that sort of lifestyle of living in a city, these are the things actually being forced upon people because they are made to believe this is the only way to live. This is the only way to get a job. This is the only way.
But like,
if you're going to make the argument that this type of lifestyle is being forced onto women because it's kind of glorified or whatever, we can make the same argument before women were entering the workforce in the same way, right? We can make the same argument that like, oh, well, we glorified homemaking and women are kind of being indoctrinated, and now
does that make it so that their biological clock is going out if they're going into homemaking, or is there actually like an adverse effect actually being happening?
What do you mean by biological clock?
Well, yeah, there are studies that show that women who are stay at home are actually like more likely to suffer from depression, things like that, right? This whole idea that women are happier at home.
You're
is
telling me
myth.
women who have like a stable home are more depressed than women who live in the
well,
city?
they don't have a stable home. A lot of the time they have like a more economic stability because they don't have their own source of income.
Yeah,
people who are married and who are
really
religious are more
it's
happy on
counterintuitive.
average. But like, I think the problem here is that like we're using this language called like forced, and like we have to move away from that because it's not true that women are being forced, but it is true that women are encouraged to go into certain fields. And the reason why we know this is because we're having this panel right now, and one of the topics is the wage gap, and the reason, a large reason for that wage gap, is the choice of field that men and women get into. And so we look at these gaps, right? The gap in income or gap in STEM, and we say that this is necessarily bad, that women are not, reaching the same standards as men. And it's not necessarily bad because it's fine if women are choosing to do other things with their life. So like, I think that that's what we should focus on, is that like, it's not forced per se, but it is obviously encouraged.
Yeah, and we got to keep in mind that what happened on the other side historically, if we want to talk about history, is that 100 years ago, women didn't have the right to work in the same way that men do, right? Or did, right? They didn't have the right to vote in the same way that men did, right? So that was something actually being enforced upon women through government policy to keep them in a certain box, right? And now the box is gone, and women I think all that society is doing right now is encouraging women to pursue these other options that they now have access to. right? So I don't think anybody's being forced to do anything. And if you're saying, hey, these women are being sold like a bill of goods or whatever, and it's actually bad for them, sure, that's great, but make the argument and maybe people will listen to you. I don't think there's anything being forced upon anybody. And Nick, I think you're going to have to demonstrate for your side of the argument, because I think you do want to put women back into that box. You're going to have to demonstrate why that box is beneficial to us today, right? And
I tried to do that earlier, and then I got cut off by that girl. And I was going to answer Stephen, my best friend, who posed the question and said, why should they not be allowed to do something that's fulfilling or something like that? Here's the thing. It's not about women's fulfillment. And the other thing is, it's also not an individual society. I'll just say it very plainly. It's not a question of, are women happy, not happy? Are they fulfilled, not fulfilled? The feminist society isn't working. And we know that it's not working because of one reason alone. Family formation is not happening. The fertility rate is below the replacement level. Society is not regenerating itself. You could say that maybe the best metric, the surest metric, maybe the most relevant, or one of the only relevant metrics is, are men and women getting together and forming families successfully, staying together and having kids, because that is what you need to perpetuate the society. That is what you need to imbue culture from one generation to the next. That's what you need to have a next generation, is for men and women to get together. And ever since, and you can see this across the developed world, and some people say this is because of the economy. Some people say this is because of technology, but and certainly those things correlate. The fact is that all of these societies where women have this role in the workplace, where women are being educated, where there's co-ed workplaces and education, families are not being formed and the next generation is not proceeding. Now, the same cannot be said in the Middle East. The same cannot be said in Africa. Same cannot be said, well, increasingly it is, but historically in Latin America. The feminist idea is failing basically on that metric alone. And so if you have a society that's blowing up and exploding because it's shrinking every year, because men and women are not getting together, because women are going out and exploring work and men are not interested in that, and then they're not forming families and not having kids, you don't have a society. That is the quintessential problem. And why are you having that problem? You're having that problem because men and women need to be getting together when they're fertile.
Nick,
and
why do you
want to live in the Middle East?
Wait, hold on, no, stop. Why do you think
honestly,
that problem
I would. I said that on my show last week. They're building the line in Saudi Arabia. It sounds awesome. There's no alcohol. Women can't drive. You're forced to wear burqas.
So you are
it's a
moving
super
there.
city.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. If you're Christian, I would be fine with that.
Cool.
Also, you interrupted
I'm
me.
with Nick on that, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But Nick, wait 1 second. So Nick, so Japan has a lower birth rate than the United States does, right? They also have a very patriarchal society, right? That does push women into, I think, traditional Japanese roles, right? That are I think pretty similar to like traditional Western roles. So why do you think their birth rate, given that they have a much more patriarchal society that is being enforced, why do you think their birth rate is so much lower than ours?
I don't think that's entirely true. I think that women are working in Japan, and I don't really know that much
just
about
the fact
Japan.
that they're working, like that's it.
Well, isn't that kind of the question of this debate?
It's
the role
not.
of women in
It's
society?
not,
So
though.
women are,
Yes,
it absolutely is. If women are, you just talked about women being given the option to be educated and work, and you say it's not relevant if women are to a large extent being educated and working in Japan. That's the principle. That is one of the things that defines modernity, along with technology, along with education. It is the expansion of the role of women. That's how you classify it. That's why we say Africa's primitive.
I think when we talk about this, I think so. I think one of the big philosophical question here, and people from the left run from it. I don't think we should. I think it's a thing to talk about, right? Is there's this unspoken assumption that we ought to be slaves to the continuing of society. And I think that assumption can be challenged. I don't think that you have the right to tell 50% of the population that we are necessarily going to force you to live a certain type of lifestyle, because if you don't, then within 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 years, it might be the case that humanity goes extinct. I don't think that that's acceptable, that you're forced to carry the burden of the existence of the future of the human race through the way that you live individually in your life. It might be the case that at some point far off into the future, that like having a smaller population becomes, some sort of negative, but I don't think we're at that point right now, right? It would probably reduce energy expenditure around the world and make it easier for people to live in different areas. Maybe our cities wouldn't be as crowded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that you need a stronger argument than the birth rates are negative. I don't think that in and of itself is an argument that's strong enough to force people to commit to a certain type of lifestyle.
Well, it's not about forcing them. It's just about recognizing objectively the success of the feminist project. And if you could say that a society is succeeding, if you could say that a society is thriving and vital, you would say that all of those things are bound up in whether or not families are being formed and kids are being made. So it's not to say that we're slaves to continuing the generations. It's to say that's the metric of a successful society. Well, also, because the societies that are doing that will be around.
That is what you were saying, though, right? Because you're saying that I'm not saying we have to be slaves to like having families. I'm just saying that we need to have like successful societies. But what you said, your words verbatim, your idea of a successful society is one that's growing in population. Your measure of that was wait, hold on. But you don't strengthen a society just by having more people. There are tons of different ways to strengthen societies. We can talk about it sociologically. We can talk about it culturally.
But that's a baseline. That's baseline.
Society can't be strong if it doesn't exist. And society only exists if people have children. So like you can't have a strong society in the first place.
So if you want open Wolfram Alpha or get a fucking math friend and you could plug in the functions, do the math, we're not going to lose everybody in 2 years or in 2 generations or in 200. Okay, so the idea that in 10,000 years, humanity might go extinct, therefore half the population right now needs to be forced to live a certain lifestyle. Otherwise, we're going to run the risk of not being able to repopulate the planet.
We're doing that with the climate agenda.
No, we're not doing that with the climate agenda.
That's exactly what your side is trying to change the way in which people live because of something very
changing how
far
people
off.
live is not the same as telling people they can't have children. I don't know how you're even making that connection.
You're telling people they can't have certain cars anymore. You're telling people that every year they have to go to the DMV and get their emissions checked for God knows why.
One of these is your body. One of these is your body, and one is the consumption of goods.
Speaking at the same time.
Things like getting your emissions checked are fine, okay? If you were in LA like 30 or 40 years ago, you couldn't even fucking see outside. It looked like Beijing. The smog was so bad. So some of these like climate policies.
Me with my 2-year-old car, I need to get my emissions. But
Stephen,
checked.
why?
If you
have
a 2-year-old car that passes your emission, if you have a 2-year-old car that passes the emission check, then you're fine. You go and you get it checked and you're good, right? Like people, I was almost really sexist. I'm sorry. People can neglect their cars.
Go there, explore that.
I won't. People can neglect their cars for a long time. Just because your car is 2 years old doesn't necessarily mean it would pass an emissions check. You might not maintain your car. You might drive around all day with a check engine light. You might have a catalytic converter or an O2 sensor that doesn't fucking work. Having your car emissions checked is not the end of the world. It's not a bad thing. And there's nothing at ends with saying we ought to have like a cleaner, healthier society, atmosphere, air, oceans. That like there's no that doesn't not work. And then you also say like we don't have to force women to breed to maintain society.
Stephen, I agree with you so much. You're so right about society and about the environment. But like, why are you right? Because we care about future generations. We care about the environment being good. And like societies are great when people are willing to care about generations ahead of them and not have this time orientation of like 4 to 8 years.
You're playing a word game. Hold on. We care about the future generations that will exist. We don't care about making a certain number of people in the future generation. Those are two incredibly different things. Hold on. We care about the people that are going to come after us on this planet. That's what we mean when we say future generations. We don't care that we're like committed to create a baseline number of people to go forward in the next generation.
It's
That's
not about creating a specific number. It's about having people at all, right? And so like,
wait, how many people do you think we're losing?
It's okay. It's not like we're going to disappear. The population's not going to like disappear. But like China's population is going to halve over the next few decades.
Let me give you a chance to finish.
Like,
wait, you said the world population will halve in the next few decades?
China's.
You think China's population will halve in the next few decades?
Yeah, because their demographics are like insane. And they're not having a lot of children.
Are there?
They're not allowed to have a lot of children.
Is there? I don't know if China doesn't. Is their population going to have, or is their birth rate going to have?
No, population.
Population.
China is the most populous country on earth.
Wait, hold on. I think
Thank you.
we need to
Thank you
justify
for that,
using birth rates
that
as like an indicator of a thriving society in the first place, right? Because it seems like you listed off like countries in the Middle East and Africa, but the countries that you're listing off tend to be countries with a very poor quality of life, and very low life expectancy. Right?
I can read the statistic if you want.
You said earlier that some people blame it on the economy or blame it on the GDP, but the reason they do that is because you can track this with all these first world nations. As the quality of life increases, as the GDP goes up, as these countries modernize, the birth rate declines, right, across the board, right? So if we can see that the countries where people are reporting happier lives, better quality of lives, where they have like more modernized societies, are the ones with the lower birth rates.
Yeah, you're restating what I said.
Why are we pointing to the ones that have worse quality of lives with their higher birth rates as like an indicator of success?
Because the fertility rate is a direct
Africa,
consequence of the relationship and the relative roles between men and women. That's why. And so, you're just restating what I said. Yes, it tracks with technological progress. Yes, it tracks with economic development, but the fertility rate is principally concerned with family formation and men and women getting together. And you're right. Africa is a primitive civilization. The Middle East is more primitive than the West. That's absolutely true. And the thing is, they're going to be here in 1,000 years on this trajectory because they're growing, they're increasing, and we're decreasing. And I think Destiny, hang on. Destiny, I think you severely underestimate the extent to which the population is shrinking. In the United States, the only reason that our demographic collapse is not moving very quickly is because it's being offset by a massive amount of immigration every year. That's a separate thing about population refreshment or replacement. But if we didn't have that, if you look at the white birth rate, it's far lower than the combined birth rate of the minority non-white population. It's being offset by immigration. Japan is in a demographic crisis.
On hate speech.
I don't know how many years. That's not hate speech. I don't know how many years in the future. It's just math. I don't know how many years in the future it will take for Canada and Japan and China to have no children, but the population reduction is significant. And the point is not to say, well, we need to do this so society is a certain kind of size. In terms of rate, this is a good metric of whether a society is succeeding. If you could say that male and female relationships are good and optimal, you'll say that families are being formed because that means that they're attracting each other and having children. If they're not doing that, then the relationships are poor. And the point is simply to say there are consequences for saying we'll just give women these menu options and women can pick what they like. That's fine and well, but we tried that and now it's having society-wide consequences.
I don't think.
I disagree. Okay, so if anything, we used to. Sorry. So if anything, again, people used to work much longer hours, and it actually was worse for the family. There are higher children dying. Children used to die much more. Women and men used to work ridiculous amounts of hours, and they would still reproduce more. I believe the decreasing birth rates is more of a sign of increased wealth rather than work, right? Because we actually work 8-hour days now, or most people do. But maternal mortality also used to be super high. And so if anything, I would say that this idea, Nick, that you're saying that feminism has created this decline in birth rates, I don't think it's necessarily true. Feminism actually pushed for maternity leave. So women, when they were in the workplace, could take off time for their pregnancies and to attend to their families. So I disagree with this entire sentiment that you have.
I think a much better predictor
Can I make one point?
The welfare state. The thing is that people used to have children because they wanted to have people in their life that were connected to them that would help them as they aged. That was a very common reason to have children, and people had lots of children for this reason. But now we have the government that's able to implement pension programs and all of these systems that make it so people aren't so concerned about having children because they know that they can save, they know they can put money away, and they know they have these organizations that are going to back them up. So I think that the data shows that a much better predictor is the role of the government as in welfare to birth rates.
I don't think people make this.
No, go Destiny.
I don't think people make decisions on having children based on them taking care of them in future timelines, except for maybe in really.
Yes, they do.
People used to.
Don't interrupt.
That is a very common thing.
Steven's talking.
That is very common.
Seriously, woman-splaining.
He's done it too.
Yeah,
okay.
Straight up. Let Steven speak.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Let me
make a stronger statement. Nobody is deciding in Western countries. Yeah, in Western countries, people aren't having kids to take care of them as they get
why?
old.
Because they don't need to.
Because we live in civilized societies where you're not going to die in the fucking street if you don't have a kid. right? No, not because of the welfare state.
I mean,
right?
effectively.
Stocks and like
you
can't have. Hold on, you can't have the conservative. Some of the worst. You can't have the conservative argument on both sides. Okay, you can't say that on one end the welfare state is disincentivizing the birth of children, and that's why our replacement rates are low. And then on the other hand, it's also mysteriously incentivizing the birth of like Black children out of wedlock.
I'm not making that argument.
Oh, you might not be making that argument, but the type of argument that you're making, that argument is made on every. That argument is made on every single side. Okay, we can't say that we're simultaneously like pumping out children or not pumping out children because of welfare, not because of welfare at the same time. So I think that when people are making the choice to have children, and I'm pretty sure that when the research shows this, or we can start digging these studies we need to, but I'm pretty sure that it's when people feel like they're in a comfortable spot in their life that they're ready to have kids. I think that's like whether or not you can afford a home, I think is one of them, and whether or not you have good financial stability, I think is another big one. It's not like I need to have kids or else when I'm old, nobody's going to take care of me. Unless you're literally in a society that has is so bare bones. And I don't mean the difference between like Canada and the United States and Sweden. I mean like the difference between like fucking Sweden and some country that has like 6 ongoing genocides. Okay, that's the difference. So that's the disparity we're talking about.
Like that's exactly
okay, hold on. But then the prescription they're giving me is we need to go back to some fucking prehistoric fucking bullshit where we're running around in tribes trying to shit out 20 kids because 10 of them are going to die in childbirth and the other 10 are going to take care of us when we're old and the fucking voodoo witch lady's trying to remove our kidney to sacrifice for some fucking rain. I don't know if we're going to go back to that society.
Only other parent
let Alex go. Let Alex go.
Hold on, Alex hasn't gone for a while. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't been able to talk, but one thing that nobody's refuted, and I think we should talk about this on the conservative side too, when we talk about the war on women, what about trans athletes that are biological males like Leah Thomas
that's another debate
against women? No, but I mean, isn't that a war on women? Why can guys with a penis that still is into, women?
Oh my God, just go watch our debate. You already.
Well, I'm just saying, isn't that so? You don't think that's a war on women, Brendan?
No, I think you're wasting your time. We've got other shit to talk about here.
You're letting guys compete against women in sports, taking away scholarships. You think that's okay? You don't think that's a war on women?
So no one's taking away scholarships. This is a totally different debate. Just go watch that.
It's about a war on women, Brendan. So if you're letting guys take a pill that says that they're having a hormone therapy and then they get to compete against women, look at Leah Thomas, ranked 457, then became the #1 NCAA ranked swimmer in.
How are you still stuck on this?
Wait, hold on.
Because that is a war on women, Brendan. All we're talking about is birth rates. When I'm trying to bring up concrete examples of how there is a war on women, and I'm conservative, and normally I probably wouldn't agree with that, but I think it's very obvious when you're letting trans people compete against biological females. Men, we already talked about the strength. Men have much more strength than women, so it's unfair. That is a disadvantage for women in sports that they're probably going to lose their scholarship, and then if they speak out against it, they can lose their scholarship. So not only is there a war physically in the sport, they're muted. They're Orwellian society. They can't even speak about it. So yeah, I think there's a war on women from competing and speaking out against the trans movement.
Yeah, and Brenton, to be fair, go ahead, Stardust. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that Doobie said earlier that I think Doobie put it really well that, there is some level of an attack on the identity of a woman from both sides of the political sphere. And I think it's wise for us to at least acknowledge that there's at least a little bit of that.
Yeah, I don't think we gain anything by shutting down.
So I win the debate.
It is totally within the scope of the war on women, quote unquote, right? Like the attack, if there is an attack on the concept of womanhood that comes from some people on the left. Right? I think we need to acknowledge that, and I think dismissing it or trying to shut it down is really unproductive.
No one is attacking a concept of womanhood. What's happening is that womanhood is.
What are you talking about? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're saying biological men with a penis can be a woman. You're saying gender. You think because you don't believe in biology.
Yes, I believe in science. I believe
because you're not based in reality. That's not science. Science is a testicle and dick. A testicles and dick. That's science.
He's such a weirdo. But I got it the same way I give you a chance, Alex. I got to give Brenton a chance to quick respond.
Yeah. Okay. So we are not destroying, in just the same way that gay marriage does not threaten straight marriage, trans women do not threaten regular women. We are expanding a concept to fit with a changing world. Now, this has affected ways that we run sports in a number of ways. It's also affected ideas like, how do you handle bathrooms? These are questions that we need to answer coming forward, but it is not going to do any good to anyone for us to simply act like this is a zero-sum game between womanhood. Just because a woman can become a man after HRT and is treated like one, that doesn't hurt me as a man. It doesn't hurt anybody here. And
it hurts. If you let a lesbian with a penis go into the women's locker room, that hurts them because they can sexually oogle women. And that is a real thing. Trans women that still have a dick, just like Leah Thomas, going in the women's locker room and changing, that is a war on women. That's disgusting. Men should not be allowed to go in there.
This is just Alex.
This is a
wait a minute. I
It's
think we can
rapists.
say,
Come on.
I think we
They're
can
rapists.
say,
They're
I think
rapists.
we can say that so I would
Don't you
make the
like that,
statement,
Nick?
like I personally believe that trans women, yes, are women, but there are still issues that affect biological women in a unique way.
Can a trans woman have a period? Can a trans woman get pregnant? Can a trans woman have a period and get
Alex, I'm not
pregnant?
disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
Okay, okay. So there are ways in which biological women still have unique issues that they face that trans women don't. And yes, there's like a biological advantage that some trans women have over biological women, right? So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. I don't understand the whole discourse about trying to like say it's exactly the same. We know it's not the exact same experience, right?
No one's saying it's exactly the same. When people say trans women are women, what they're saying is that trans women should be considered women within our society.
Yes, and they are, and I agree with that. So I think trans women should be considered women, but I think just like we do with any other group of women, we also can acknowledge that there are different realities based on your biological makeup, based on the life that you lived, and so there are different categories within women that are going to affect certain women differently, and there are ways that biological women are going to be affected
Stardust,
by
you
certain
just
things.
said there's multiple realities. That's not real. There's not multiple realities.
Okay, I maybe I phrased it wrong. I could have phrased it wrong. I'm so sorry.
And Iron Man and
Can
all
I-
that is
okay.
one reality. Okay,
Can I ask
as a
Brenton a
man's
question?
world.
Is that okay?
Bitch.
Yeah,
Nah,
'cause
I didn't
Brenton, I think-
that's Stardust.
Brenton, I think trying to,
Everybody's
like-
saying about the way I'm saying woman. I'm saying it the right way.
You're saying
Stop
woman.
it.
It's women.
You're saying
I'm
woman,
saying
but like
women.
it's plural.
You want me to say women? Women. I
Yeah,
can say
it's
women,
women.
but
Women is
okay.
the plural
gives a
of
shit?
woman.
person. Hold on, but Brenton, I think
glad
dismissing
you
this
brought
is
that
like
up. Yeah.
Alex's obsession or something is, I think, like not real, right? I think so. What do you say to like a leftist, for example, who comes to you and says, "Hey, I think that trans women in transitioning to their new gender are actually reinforcing a ton of patriarchal stereotypes about what it means to be a woman, what it means to look like a woman, what it means to speak like a woman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Right? They're actually reinforcing the patriarchal social roles just through their existence, and your embrace of them is actually helping that patriarchy along. This thing that they've been trying to dismantle for decades. So, what do you say to a leftist that would say that to you? Because that is a very common position among feminists.
Among TERFs, but yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
they're
what I would
feminists.
say to that,
Okay, sure.
TERFs are not feminists.
Yes, they are.
All right.
God.
So
Please,
anyway,
like-
what I would say to that specifically is, first of all, patriarchy is not the only thing that is holding you down, and you should know this if you're a feminist, because kyriarchy overrules patriarchy. Kyriarchy is a more, I guess.
Are you mansplaining feminism to me right now? No, I'm just.
No,
kidding.
I'm mansplaining it to the TERF. So like what's happening there is that you have to look and keep your head in the game, like, and see what is going to benefit women and the rest of society more. Is it going to benefit women and the rest of society more to attack and abuse a minority within that society? Or is it going to benefit us more to I guess, broaden our idea of gender, to broaden our idea of what a woman's role is and what a woman is? The more options you have, the better it's going to be. And people will then be able to work with others to bring out the best in themselves and others. So the idea, I can understand why someone might feel attacked by the idea of women changing, just like I can see someone who might feel attacked by the idea of men changing and taking on different roles. But the fact is, this is society. This is life. This is humanity. Change is the only universal constant, and you can never get away from that.
But that doesn't mean we need to change all the time. Anytime like a proposed
Certainly
change
not.
comes up.
Yeah, no.
So
I
these
hate
women.
This.
Please, so this
I
woman,
hate the
this woman
idea
who's
that-
oh God, please.
Yeah, go
I
ahead,
love you,
Doopy.
Taftaj, but I think it's I think you just demonstrated, right, how you kind of dismissed the fact that I think that a lot of trans women, when they attempt to pass as a woman, are actually reinforcing these stereotypes, right? That seems to be the case, right? And you said, hey, well, they need to realize that it's
Why do
not
you
just
think they need to pass?
that even though trans
Okay, but
women
there
are
are plenty-
reinforcing patriarchal stereotypes, what you should actually be focused on is the kyriarchy and how that's also oppressing you,
Mhm.
right? But this is still reinforcing patriarchal stereotypes.
If
right?
you're
And
attacking
then
kyriarchy,
further-
you are not. Patriarchy
further,
is a
and then
subgroup in kyriarchy.
and then further, if you are saying that, hey, also you need to be okay with what they consider to be males, men, being in your spaces, being in your sports, being in women's abuse shelters, being in women's prisons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe having access to grants in education that are formed and put in place for women to try to knock through the glass ceiling, whatever the fuck that the patriarchy has put in place in the past. If you're giving these men access to all these things that were meant for women, you are actually damaging women in some way. So you need to deal with that argument. It doesn't make sense to just dismiss it as like Alex's obsession or to tell them to focus on the hierarchy. That's not. I don't think that's productive.
The idea,
and again, anytime we bring up every time we bring up biological woman, it's not that somebody is saying that trans women are not women, but anytime you bring up biological women and their unique struggles that they face, people automatically assume that you're excluding trans women from the status of woman when you're not. There's just a difference in what biological women have to deal with. There's a biological disadvantage to being a woman. You are
that's for real.
Yeah.
Now that's true. That's the truest thing I've heard
also,
all night.
And again, I would say that I don't see why us talking about how biological women have their own unique struggles is somehow excluding trans women from the label of woman. We're not doing that.
It's not, but the problem is that bigots will use the word biological.
So we just stop talking about actual issues because bigots will take advantage of the language or whatever.
No, but you just have to be careful when you're having that conversation because a lot of people just sadly aren't very smart and don't think in this in a very nuanced manner. So
but your solution is to shut it
I
down.
was
to dismiss it and shut it down. Right. So you're dismissing and shutting down the real concerns of women in our society to support like what 1%
so I am
of the
dismissing the
population?
concerns of one tiny group of radicals.
No, that's not true.
That is true.
That is
not true at all. Like elections are going to be won or lost on this.
If you say so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like
this is not a small amount of people. You are a man, so you may not actually understand how women feel about this issue because it's
I understand
always
how right-wing
men
women feel about this issue.
No, it's not just
women
right
too.
wing. Are you kidding? It's a lot
it's
of
really
women
frustrating
too.
for me too.
Exactly.
One person at a time.
I'm trans, right? And presumably you are like saying these things for my benefit, but like
no.
For the benefit of trans people.
I speak the truth as I see it. I don't say it for anyone's benefit.
Not trying to help trans people, but I'm very frustrated by like the left's decision to try to like weaponize trans identity towards gender abolition. And I said this earlier, but like if you want to make a distinction between like cis women or trans women or call like trans women like galoopa-goops or like whatever the word is, whatever the sound orientation coming out of your mouth is, like I don't think it matters. Like what matters to me ultimately is that I can like wear the kind of clothes that I want to wear. Like that's the important thing. And I'm really frustrated by like people trying to make it so much more than it is. It's not that complicated. And like I don't think that trans women need to be like institutionally allowed into every space that cis women have ever been in. That's not the purpose of like my life or my activism or what I'm trying to get by like just transitioning. And so I think that like it really does people a disservice when you turn them into political pawns and try to use like a specific person's,
and also
medical
one type of
like,
woman
Brittany,
that
do you think
feels
trans
this
women
way.
should have access to free abortions, Brenton?
I think everyone should have access to free abortions.
Even trans women. See, that shows you how unbased in reality you are if you think a trans woman.
No,
can
I'm
even
an
get
anarchist,
pregnant. So
idiot.
that just but just because you're an anarchist, you're the idiot that thinks trans people can have babies, dude. You're the idiot. You don't even understand
There's
simple
very
science.
unique issues to cis women who also cis women who have a lot of children actually have unique health problems that trans women are not going to have to deal with, right? Cis women are again going to be just biologically a little bit weaker on average than the average male.
A lot.
And okay, a lot, a little, whatever you want to say. Okay.
It went a little bit differently.
Okay.
I could fight you
Okay,
easily,
little guy, calm
Stardust.
down.
Yeah, well, you're a man.
Yeah, exactly. Look at my muscles.
I think we need to acknowledge at a certain point that just like we treat a different population within women, sorry, I've been saying it wrong, chat, women, we treat like specific populations within the women category, like people of color or disabled women or all of that. We can do the same with cis women and trans women. Am I saying it right now? Are you guys happy?
Yeah.
I'm happy. You know, it's weird. Okay, so throughout this whole thing, there's been this point that keeps coming back when people are like, men are stronger. And what's the problem here is I feel like strength, like physical strength, which is, you know, tends to be more a masculine thing, is being confused with power. And that men are more powerful because we are stronger. This is not true. And in fact, you know, a good example of this would be the PKK/YPG. The YPG was an all-female fighting force. They are still holding their territory after being betrayed by the US government. They're the single best warriors, local warriors against ISIS. So the idea that women cannot exercise power, they won't exercise power in the same way that a man would, but they will absolutely exercise power.
I don't think it's the issue, though.
Men are actually smarter as well.
I mean, it's the issue.
That's why I'm winning this debate.
Base.
My massive IQ.
All right.
I don't know if I buy that.
I'm going to disagree with that.
I want to jump in here on the question of, here's why that matters, is because, you know, if we were all in a room together, I think Alex is the biggest one here. It's like we could elect a leader amongst us or something, but if Alex is the biggest one in the room, and the, you know, the leader, whoever said, well, hey, I think it should be this way, you know, Alex could just like get a big rock and smash it over the other person's head. And that that's a definition of power. And the thing is, most interactions in society it's not a warfare scenario where there's arms. You know, most domestic scenes and most workplace scenes, and physical intimidation, it works with strength and size. And yeah, and the other thing too is that men are smarter. So, and from that proceeds, by the way, from that proceeds the relative roles, not necessarily. From that proceeds the roles of men and women, but it also indicates something about men and women, which is that men and women are fundamentally different. And I think that maybe one of the big differences in our worldview is that I am not an individualist. I don't believe in this abstraction of the individual, which is sort of sexless, raceless, who should have rights and get to say what they want to do in society. Because it's really not an individual.
I'm literally an anarcho-communist. I am not an individualist.
Okay, well, Destiny is. And I think the trans person is individualist as well. And this presupposes that there's not fundamental differences between men and women. And then as a consequence, they have to be treated differently. Everything about them is different. These are essential differences. And so to say that we're just going to say, oh, men and women are just going to have the same roles and men can become women and women can become men, it is a fundamental misunderstanding of the composition.
So where are the essential differences?
Well, I would just say, I disagree. I think just because men.
I'll give you a really quick and pithy one, Stardust, and then just in case anybody hasn't spoken for a while, Marie and April.
Okay.
Go ahead. All
right. So just because men and a woman may have inherent differences in what they do and what they gravitate to doesn't mean that we don't create a society where anybody can choose to go outside of that role if they feel the need to, if they feel like their calling is outside of that role. And I also wanted to touch on one subject. Doobie brought it up very briefly, but the idea of passing I thought was really interesting because I feel that there are a lot of trans women who pass better than cis women, especially just with the way that norms are and the beauty standards that we have and stuff like that. And so I thought that was a very interesting point. I know a lot of cis women who feel that they don't pass as well as a lot of trans women. So,
Brendan, are you bisexual? Is that true that you're bisexual, Brendan?
Why does that matter? Why is it relevant?
So which sex do you like? Which sex would you rather have sex with?
Why is it relevant to the conversation?
It's a good question. It's a good question.
But who do you prefer to have sex with, men or women?
Alex, when you jerked off last,
I prefer to have sex with multiple people at once. So yeah.
Ah, gross. So much information.
Multiple dudes.
No, if we're getting
he
personal,
just said
Alex,
he just said he jerks off to the WNBA.
Are you worried about monkeypox? At least
Alex,
it's
the last
women.
time you jerked off, like which page of the Bible were you looking at?
When I cranked it, I was watching the WNBA. I was watching the Liberty.
Okay, that's actually the base.
Yeah, I was looking at AOC, my favorite big booty Latina.
All right,
God,
next
this is
topic.
terrible.
Before we go into the Q&A, I actually want to remind you folks, our guests are linked in the description. We're going to go into the Q&A shortly, but I do want to remind you that includes if you're listening at the podcast, we put our guest links in there. So check them out if you want to hear more about their views. Any last closing thoughts? Any final thoughts before we go into the Q&A?
Yeah, I had one really quickly. And so people were talking about passing and trans women passing and them, being overly feminine when they do this. Can you think of a reason why trans women might want to pass beyond simply like pretending to be a woman or whatever, or reinforcing patriarchy? It's so they can get jobs. It's so they can get housing. It's so that they will not be harassed on the street by people like Nick. Like there is a practical reason why they would need to pass and why they would need to, and sometimes probably overdo it with some kind of hyper femininity.
If you want to be a woman, like I don't understand that, because like if you want to be a trans woman, you're saying you want to be a woman, so wouldn't you therefore logically want to pass?
Yeah, typically
you would want to pass, but
it doesn't really make sense.
Typically passing is like helps like gender dysphoria or whatever, right? So like when they're passing, they feel like they're passing, they don't have to feel as dysphoric, and this is helpful to them. Like,
and they also are in a far less danger from the rest of society.
You're wrong. It's purely autogynephilia. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh god.
Well, I don't think anybody's denying that there are reasons for why people want to pass. It's just.
I think the best meme is hey, listen, when a Pizza Hut closed down and they tried to put a Chinese restaurant in it, everybody knows it's still a Pizza Hut. So some things can only change so much. You're always going to know.
God.
And then when you show up and try to order a Pizza Hut at the Wendy's, like you look like a fucking idiot, right? Like
okay, Doobie, you're just annoyed. Are you trans or something? Why are you so mad about this?
I'm not. Why are you constantly attacking people personally?
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm just wondering why Doobie's so mad at me. I'm talking about the
Alex is the most emotional person on this panel. Okay.
I wear my heart on my sleeve. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an emotional person.
Don't ever tell me that women are more emotional than men again, because Alex is here. Okay.
That's true. I'm so emotional. Oh my God, the war on women. I agree with you.
Any last thoughts? Anybody else?
Last thoughts.
Can Doobie talk?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Am I allowed to say this?
No, you're a woman. You're not allowed to say shit.
Okay. So there's been a meme going around on Twitter that everybody calls me white. So I just want to say I'm the new savior of the white race. So just want to let you guys know I have taken the crown. It's my thing now. So yeah.
You got it.
You're not white. You're brown.
No shit, Alex.
I am the new savior, okay? All white men should aspire to be like me, okay? I'm just letting you know I have taken it. Nick, you can try and challenge for it, but it's gone. It's not yours anymore. I have the crown. I am the savior.
We'll jump
are you trans, Stardust? Are you a biological woman or are you trans?
All right.
I am a cis woman.
Oh, you sure?
I know, I get it. I look very masculine. Maybe this is why this topic,
April.
Anyways.
Yes, middle guy. What's up?
Any last thoughts before we do go into the Q&A?
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting studies on like the values of men and women. Fairman et al., Sue et al., Dykeman et al. And women are more likely to endorse communal, group-serving, people-oriented values. And I think that's why people like Nick are ultimately endorsing a feminine ideology, one that is not very individualistic or competitive or masculine, but one that just basically gives handouts to the people who are not succeeding.
What?
So
I'm not talking about handouts.
That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and blames the failings of men on women. Yeah, women are succeeding, and I'm not.
I didn't blame it on women. I blamed it on
and
other
I'm not
people.
married. I'm not married. I don't
at.
have kids, and et cetera, et cetera. And it must be because women are pushing me down. The patriarchy has been dismantled. Now the matriarchy is forcing me into my room to yell at women all day on the internet. Like it seems. I don't know. It does seem pretty feminine.
Yeah, except that's not what's happening. Except that's not what's happening. I said
blaming
who I
it
thought was
on another
responsible,
minority
and then
is
everybody
also
yelled at me.
Well, Nick, why are you?
You can say that on Twitch. You can say that on YouTube. That's
like Nick. Traditionally, like someone like you would be married at like 18 years old. Like, well, why?
Yeah, but I'm an asexual incel, so that's where you don't understand my life.
I apologize.
Sculptor, not the clay. As we like to say, like Schopenhauer said, I'm the sculptor.
Any other?
But I don't know. Maybe I'll Stardust as a new savior of the white race. I don't know.
You
She's
should make
considered
very
white.
pretty
Maybe
babies.
we could repopulate the earth.
Look, I'm just saying that all white men aspire to be what I am. So, that's
it's true. That's
generally what it is.
Paku, look in your eyes. If more men had that, I think we'd have a different kind of movement. But my closing thoughts on this whole deal. I mean, look, it's just reality. We're talking about men and women. We all know what men and women are about. We all have moms. We all know women in a peer relationship, siblings, friends in school. We know men and we know women, and we know what they're like, and we know where they should be. And women belong as mothers in the home raising their babies. And if they want to take on some little tasks, they want to, help a man with a research paper, or, their husband or something like that, or pick up the phones, I think that's fine. But we need to restore gender roles. We need to have gender segregation. We need to allow men and women to thrive in their separate domains. And we need to cease the elevation of women in these roles where they don't belong at the expense of men. It's killing society. And you could see that in this is just a contributing factor, but the decline in the fertility rate, as well as a number of problems between men and women, within men and women. And on some level, we all understand that feminism is the real enemy. Feminism sort of goes hand in hand with modernity, which is poison. So I would say that
incel with no family, no wife, no kid.
Gotta move on.
That's right.
You have no room to talk on any of these issues.
Absolutely, I do. I'm a theorist.
Can I disagree? I would like to disagree with his statement about feminism.
You're a fat bisexual with a Ukraine pendant on.
I hate to do it, Stardust.
And you look homeless. You don't have right to talk about anything.
Brenton, we've heard so much from you. All right, Stephen, any last words?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Where
are we? What was the topic of this again? Jesus Christ.
I disagree with. I disagree with his statement on feminism. You can look at how the ways in which feminism. There are obviously cringe people on Twitter, screaming about everything, but that feminism has pushed for things for families historically. So feminism was very much like a family-oriented movement in a lot of ways. So.
Anybody else? Last word?
None of us would be here without our mothers, so we need to lift up moms.
Gotcha. And want to say, folks, our guests are linked in the description. I'm going to jump into the Q&A. If you happen to have a question, you can submit it by adding me, namely at Modern Day Debate, the YouTube channel. We're live right now. If you have a question, come on over. Freaking John says, Doobie needs to speak up. Let's see. And I don't like looking at Brenton. All right. So, folks, I want to remind you, we don't want insults, not even of Brenton. This one coming in from Andrew. Come on, I'm kidding. Andrew Farrell says, for Taft, the economy has changed, yes, but the production of GDP should not come at the expense of the family. Any thoughts, April?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that you have to strike a balance here. And that balance means making sure they're not depriving women of family and of infant rearing, which I think is important on a civilizational level. And maybe Destiny doesn't care about this, but I think it's really important to look way into the future. If it means thousands of years into the future, then thousands of years into the future. And so I think that having children is important. And you ought to preserve that, and you ought to allow women to contribute to the economy where they're able.
This one from Dave Gar says, could you please use more inclusive terms such as soy person or soy human or soy entity in your polls? Yeah. Thank you very much for your question. This one coming in. Bub Savvy says, let's all agree there is a war on humanity. Liberty is mocked on both sides. My liberty, not yours. Where is the state when you need them? All we can hope for is political wins to dominate our political enemies. Simple as that. Thoughts?
I mean, I agree with him in that, the state is involved essentially in a cold war against everyone on behalf of the elite. Yeah, I mean, he's right. I just think he's getting a little dramatic about it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree. The pretense is gone. Now it's a race to the top, race to use the state to crush our enemies. I think it's totally true. And the right needs to drop this liberty business and talk about interest-based politics and power. Yeah, totally agree.
Gotcha. And thanks very much for your question. This one coming in from Bifurcation Station says, let Jesse on. Jesse, like Jesse Lee Peterson? I don't know. Amazing. Next one, Freaking John says, Doobie needs to, Liz, you got that one. Mr. Meme says, hey, Nick Fuentes, explain the transgender Is it PM or PRN?
Oh yeah.
Never mind
That's
that. Alan
fake.
Cummins, great, says Alan, says great debate, guys. Nick, what are your thoughts on Lauren and how she lives? Let's see. I don't want to do anything when Lauren's not here to defend herself. Mr.
Yeah,
Monster
same.
says, do you think women should be told what to do by men, or are they more powerful, independent of men?
I think that one of the things that I don't think we got into enough is the fact that people are kind of socially conditioned by their society, right? And we talked a lot about, women are inherently this way and men are inherently that way. But there are plenty of examples throughout history in our civilization, in other civilizations, where it is just not the case that people are a certain way, right? Or like inherently. I think you can look at humans all over the planet and find that they do things far differently than we do. And the reason they do that is because they're socially conditioned from birth to behave in a certain way by the culture, right? So just like, I feel like we need to talk about that a little more, because Nick, it sounded like you said that either is just an expression of our understanding of natural tendencies among men and women, or it is just it's just not true that they're socially conditioned, right? That they're just the way that they are because that's how they are, right? And I think that's clearly not the case.
Yeah, I agree that society exerts influence on people. Of course.
Yeah. So when you were saying that, women are inherently this way, or men and women are, behave this way and that way, how much of that do you think is socially conditioned?
I think that the social conditioning derives from their biology.
So you think it's just like an expression
derived from fact, and I think that the other social conditioning is derived from ideology. It's derived from ideas and visions. So it's a question is what kind of social conditioning do we want? And is the social conditioning working against reality, or is it working alongside reality? And clearly you can see that in a lot of different projects by mankind and a lot of different ambitious political parties and things like that. Some things work with our nature and some things work against our nature. So, but yeah, I don't think that's in dispute. It's just saying things that are obvious.
I think that is in dispute.
What?
I think there are plenty of examples where men and women in other civilizations act in ways that are far, far, far outside of the norm of Western culture, right, or our culture.
So hard to hear you, Doobie.
Oh, I apologize. I think we can, again, you were talking about history, and we can even look to recent history, right? And this is something I like bringing up a lot because it's really funny. But we could look to even Papua New Guinea, 6 years ago, right, where people were socially conditioned to believe that it was masculine for young boys to give the adults in the tribe blowjobs every day, because they thought the only way for them to become real men was to ingest semen daily. Right, so from the age of 7 to 16 or something, they're giving blowjobs to the men in the tribe every day, and this was a masculine thing to do. And if they didn't do it, they wouldn't be real men. They would be feminine because they needed to suck the dick to get the feminine influence of their mothers out of them. Right, so I think, and that was a totally like a rational, reasonable way for them to behave to them, right? So given that you have extremes like that out there, or you have cannibalism on the other side, right? I don't think it makes sense to say that, hey, women or men or anybody behaves in a way inherently or naturally. I think it's absolutely
that's just a false syllogism to say primarily
some
things are subjective, that everything is subjective. That's just wrong.
I didn't say everything.
That is it's primarily what you're saying. There are things that are objective and there are things that are subjective. And
the Sam Cedar tribe.
But I think you need to demonstrate something is objective if you're making that claim.
Okay, it's rooted in biology. Men are stronger than women. Women have to bear children. Women are more relational because of that. They think of people and faces and names and are cooperative because they have a biological function to produce offspring. And so, and that, we don't need to get into the science. We're in the Q&A session,
okay,
but
this is
you're saying that they have this subjective tradition, so I guess any behavior.
But what you just pointed to is a subjective tradition that's relative to the time and place in which these things were useful, right? I asked you earlier, hey, tell me why we should be appealing to cavemen social roles in the modern day when we're speaking to each other from across the planet on the internet. Why is it useful to say, hey, men are stronger, men are physically stronger, so therefore, they're dominant in our society, or they're dominant in this way or that way. And not to say that, hey, yeah, women can also interact with our society in plenty of ways that don't involve their physical strength, don't involve any of those biological limitations, as you call them, and take on dominant roles or leadership roles in our society. Like, why should we be using yesterday's like social roles when they just don't seem to apply?
The biology hasn't changed. The biology hasn't changed, and I'm not arguing that men should still be hunting mammoths and women should still be, knitting things out of leaves or whatever.
The fact that you're arguing should means
oh, you're interrupting me.
Yeah, because you're saying stupid shit.
Yeah, well, that's not how this works. You want to go live in Papua New Guinea where they're eating people and drinking cum? You probably would like that. You freak. You probably would. You look like you'd like that. You
Let's jump into the next. I hate to do this, but we have so many questions. Well, Legend Riv says the U.S. is a service sector economy, and most of this sector's industry is women run. BLS Gov admits this. I think Bureau of Labor Statistics. There is no war on women. There is an argument that the deficits created here is damaging the economy. Thoughts, please? Any of you?
What is the sector in question that they mentioned?
The service sector, the largest part of our economy, I think.
Yep, the U.S. is the service sector economy, and most of these sectors' industry is run by women. And there is no war on women. There is an argument that the deficits created here is damaging the economy. Thoughts?
That is no argument. Anybody that some people think that like a service economy isn't real, and if you're not like manufacturing like fucking bricks or cinder blocks, you're not actually doing real work. It's just it's dumb. Yeah, it's one of those like.
Destiny, come on.
I wasn't sure.
It's like that fucking stupid meme where it's like fake jobs and it's like computer programmer, nuclear engineer, astronaut, and then it's like real jobs and it's like carpenter, electrician, guy that fucking shoves his dick in a tree.
That's like a service. Isn't carpentry a service job though?
Service is a job.
Well, yeah. Well, no.
Yeah, but you're like,
it means like production.
You're doing a like that is a service.
I'm talking about like where you're like, I guess electrician and carpenters might actually be considered jobs. Yeah, but like when you're anything related to like manufacturing, sure. Anything related to like manufacturing, whatever. People think that's like if you're not like making stuff, like working on stuff, it's not like a real job or whatever.
I agree with that. I think that this whole Russia debacle is proving that, because we're like, we're going to cut you off from international trade. And it's like, okay, well, we have all the oil and gas and food and you don't. That's why the British are paying 5,000% premium on gas from Belgium. And I know that was
if you say so. It looked to me like Putin just fell on his face. Like he was supposed to take that country in like a day.
I don't think anybody believed that. He destroyed the Ukrainian army. It's going and
if he had destroyed the Ukrainian army, he would have won. At the moment,
it's ironic that you're an anarchist and you're shilling for like NATO. I find that
just to be clear, I hold on. I'll shill for Ukraine. Okay, the Russian economy is currently fucked.
Yeah, no, the Russians are doing.
And number two, Russia massively fucked up the Ukrainian invasion. It is nothing but weapons grade copium. If you think rolling around tanks on the street with no support and not taking Kyiv in literally 3 days is anything but an abject failure of what people thought the Russian military could do, including Russia itself. So of course that was a massive fuck up.
You want to make a bet, Destiny, on who's going to win this war?
Putin's already lost the war. Like maybe they can stop in the way that his goal was like in 3 days. He wanted the city of Kyiv. He wanted a new administration. He wanted Donetsk and Luhansk as breakaway states, and he wanted Crimea to stay his, and he wanted to be over in like 2 weeks tops. That's what he wanted.
He ever articulated.
This is probably going to last like decades. This is going to be a decades-long war. So
and they've humiliated Russia.
Yeah, I mean, it's already taking a really long time.
Let's take a bet then. We could all in Destiny in our debate. You were talking about Russia hitting nuclear power plants. That was a fake NATO story, just like Russia using chemical weapons, just like all the other stuff. So I mean, we could talk about the current propaganda, but let's just make a bet about what.
Sure. What do you want to bet? What do you want to bet
on? Let's say that by the end of the year, Luhansk and Donetsk totally liberated and independent states are annexed to Russia.
Liberated.
Wait. Do they count as liberated right now?
Well, I think one of them is Luhansk, I think one of them is completely under Russian control. Yeah, and they're
because I need to read a little, but I would almost make this bet with you right now. Maybe I would. Okay, if you're telling me that Ukraine will recognize them as independent states, like that they'll be like, okay, we've lost that. Is that like a bet you want to make, or you just want to?
I don't think Kiev will. I mean, they may capitulate later on, but they will effectively be under Russian control, and that's what matters. I mean, the United States.
When you say, but I'm trying to push you because I don't want you to be like, Are you talking like they've brokered a peace?
That's not how I sound.
They've brokered a peace deal. There's a ceasefire. and Ukraine is content to say, okay, Luhansk and Donetsk, we're gonna leave this alone for a little bit.
No, I think the war will probably be ongoing. But I
okay,
think that,
then you're not even making a real bet. Okay, just let the record show that you totally walked back from your shit. That's
no,
fine.
I did not. I said that Luhansk and Donetsk could be liberated by the end of the year, and I think
what is liberate? People would have said that they were liberated a year ago. Like, what do you mean by liberated? Like, if Ukraine, if they're still fighting along the borders, if they're all fighting in the Donbass, and Russia's still pouring in military support, everything, how is that liberated?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying they won't be fighting in the Donbass. I'm saying that Russia will have fully secured Luhansk and Donetsk from the control of Kiev. They'll have military control of those places. A referendum will be held. They'll either be annexed or they'll have independence. And the war may still be ongoing in Odessa or Kherson.
Military control of Iraq?
What?
Did the United States have military control of Iraq?
Not complete military control, but we're talking about a region versus a state.
So hold on, wait. The United States did. Hold on. The United States literally installed a new government in Iraq. I would say that counts as like complete military control.
Yeah, and we disabled the new government in Afghanistan, and they never controlled the entirety of the country.
That's the point. That's what's going to happen.
No, wait, hold on.
Yeah, and I don't think Russia's going to take all of Ukraine. I don't think that was ever the objective.
It was definitely the objective.
No, it was not. He articulated on February 24th that he wanted to demilitarize Ukraine, liberate Luhansk and Donetsk, and secure Crimea. And I think that's
Vladimir Putin, regular man who tells the truth all the time. He also said he wasn't going to attack.
I don't think he said that. I don't think he said that at all.
Yes, he did.
He said
it was just.
We're totally off topic. We've got to jump into the next one. Olivia says, James, how can you say you're a fair moderator when you told Brenton to shut up and have never once told Alex Stein to shut up in a debate? Well, to be fair, Alex wasn't.
He has told me to shut up. Yeah, but you told me to shut up.
That's right.
I don't feel like you told me to shut up, though. I will agree. I think you've been a little loose with Alex.
Oh,
yeah, because I'm a pimp on a blimp, Brenton, and you're a bisexual freak.
All right,
so
let's
that's
go
why.
to the next one. Mr. Memes coming with a question for Nick. Says Nick. Let's see. Okay, that's another personal attack. Rumbly Depew says, thanks for bringing these brilliant minds together. Brenton is right. There is a war on women. He proved it when he claimed Breonna Taylor was shot while sleeping in her bed.
Okay, so on the issue of Breonna Taylor being shot while sleeping in her bed, what happened there was, one, I jumped into that debate on like zero notice. You actually, and I didn't get the chance to do the research that I normally do. But on the other point of it is that the actual statement, Breonna Taylor was shot in her bed, caught on for two reasons. One, because it echoed the death of Fred Hampton, and two, because even though it was an incorrect statement, it more accurately described the injustice of what happened to her during that raid. So, yeah, she wasn't literally shot in her bed, but she still got the cops busted in her door.
Spiritually true.
That's really stupid. I'm sorry.
I don't know about spiritually true.
But
the fact is,
so fucking
if
dumb.
you're trying
dude.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel that way, but the fact is that if you're trying to get something into a single soundbite, you need to craft it in such a way that the actual idea is communicated.
Listen, we all say dumb
like the cops are hunting them down in their
That's
homes
like
and
a
shooting them
normal
while
part
they're
of life.
asleep.
I mean, the cops were doing that, but okay.
No, they did not. That's not what happened.
The cops have been doing that across the country. I mean, freaking Freddie Gray.
Where do cops just murder people while they're asleep?
While they're asleep? That's literally how they killed Fred Hampton.
That was your claim. Your claim was that across the country, cops were busting into people's homes, going to the bedrooms and shooting them.
No, that was not my claim.
What's your claim?
My
James,
claim
is
that the police were completely out of line in what they did, and it was incredibly tragic within Breonna Taylor's situation, as well as hundreds of others.
Okay, what was out of line from the police side, other than the dude that was shooting through the window like a crazy person?
I mean, the rest of the fact police that it was a
returned fire after her boyfriend shot at the police officer.
Yeah, of course he shot at the police officers.
Okay, I understand the argument about self-defense. I understand, right?
Yeah,
that's fine. Must go on. I hate to do this, but we have so many questions. Legend Rivs says, "Let women practice their Second Amendment rights if there is a war on them. This gets rid of sexual harassment, fear, and toughens up women." Hashtag Uwagawuga. Ooga wooga.
True.
Next one, Light of the Twin Lamps. This question for Nick: if you support USA becoming a Catholic theocracy, shouldn't you support illegal immigration from Catholic Latin America, who are more likely to support your views than secular USA?
No, because then it won't be America. If we have to fundamentally transform the identity of America, on an ethnic basis, on a genetic and heritage basis, cultural basis, then that's not a Catholic America. I mean, and also, these Latin Americans are not. they're not the kind of Catholics that people say they are. I mean, they vote for abortion, they vote for gay marriage and all that. So, it's not like they're voting for the Guadalupe Empire or whatever. So, no, I think that's a lot of like soft conservative Catholics believe in that nonsense. It's like a different version of natural conservative from Paul Ryan, but it's like a Catholic bent. So, no, I don't think that makes any sense.
That's up. You got to thank very much. This one coming in from Minecraft Player says, how can there be a war against women if women aren't real? I don't think I've seen one ever. Must be Photoshop. Also, shout out to Sonic Inflation. Okay, gosh. For the first part, disregarding the sun. Any thoughts on the first one? This one coming in.
I didn't even understand that.
The legend Rib strikes
Just
again.
Google
Says,
Sonic inflation. You'll get it.
Does the U.S. is officially in a recession?
Is it like Rule 34 or something?
This one coming in, they say the U.S. is officially in a recession with a 2-quarter negative GDP print. Also, savings rates at 5%. Last time that happened was the 2008 recession. Male jobs like production aren't around. Help us out, women. Any thoughts?
Don't Google Sonic inflation.
That's true.
I don't
Next
think we
one.
are technically in a recession because I think the government decides when to announce it, and they've chosen a different path.
I think recessions are like very economically technical definitions, and numbers are always revised like up and down depending on like some people would say it's 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, but like
there is no like universally accepted.
Yeah, accepted. What is the definition? Yeah, so like it's hard because like there's disproportionate wage growth
like
right
in
now.
my economic textbooks, we had definitions of recessions for different countries.
Can you cite
so there
them?
are
Can you
definitions.
So
it's actually the 2 quarters of negative.
No, because that's used sometimes.
Negative GDP.
So
but that's in an economic textbook.
No,
like it just is there.
I guarantee you, because I also went to school
business
for this.
cycle.
Like, I studied
it's the business cycle.
But like
it's the business cycle.
April,
as well.
what's up?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, the fact is, a recession is just like a decrease in economic growth, right? Like fundamentally, that's what it is. And like where you draw the line as far as saying like this is enough decrease to be like getting a special title is like
but in a business cycle, it is 2 quarters.
Yeah,
there's a traditional way of defining it, yes, and that is with the 2 quarters. So when I say like there's no official thing, like I'm kind of making fun of the fact that we've decided not to use the traditional definition for this current shrinking of the economy.
Yeah, in 2020, when there were 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth under Trump, everybody said, okay, we're officially in a recession. And, and that was true. But now that it happened, they said, oh, well, in the first quarter, that was because of an increased trade deficit. So it technically doesn't count.
Because I think because trying to figure out if we're in a recession, it really doesn't matter what you call it. The important thing is what is the policy action we need to take in response to that. And if we act right now like the economy is in the shitter and everything is fucked, there might be certain forms of like stimulus that we might be expecting from the Federal Reserve. Or there might be certain forms of stimulus that we might expect from the federal government. Or there might be other types of actions that we take in order to alleviate the economic problems. But the problem is that whether or not we're having a severe economic problem, it's really hard to identify. The closure of small businesses is not happening at recession levels. Wages are growing among poor workers at like historic levels. Unemployment is unbelievably fucking low. It's hard to say inflation is growing for sure. But the idea that we're just in a huge shitter economy where there's like a huge recession, that's not true. That's not the lived experience right now of most Americans.
Wait, what are you talking about? That is so wrong. All of the polls are showing that people are in really bad economic situations. You have 500,000 subscribers. You have said that you make X amount of money on YouTube. So like, it's not maybe your lived experience, but for people who are dealing with this and having their mortgage rates go up, yes, it is very much their lived experience, and all the polls
for lived experiences,
to back this up.
Polls will ask you if you think
this is backed up by surveys.
So polls,
it just is.
Polls, I don't care what an average person surveys for if they think they're doing, good or bad. That's not relevant to literally anything. Okay, you can poll an American on whether on if they like the ACA versus Obamacare, and you might get a 50-point difference in the poll. That's not how we're looking at like the economic well-being of people, right? So when you say things like,
it looks at how did you feel last year compared to now when the economic
I don't care how you feel, because how you feel literally might just be because the president.
Yeah, but it's also your mortgage payments will tell you how
your mortgage payments,
how much money you have.
Your mortgage payments,
yes, they will go. They will change.
Why?
Most people, a lot of people are
No, they're
variable
fixed
rates.
Well, that
Hold
should
on,
be
if you're- if
reflected
you're-
on
Not every
our
mortgage is a
goals,
fixed rate.
right?
Knock that off.
Okay,
If
Variable
mortgages are
rate
going
mortgages.
I didn't even
up,
finish my original
Guys are
point. Hold
all
on.
making the
You
same
can't. Yeah. First of all, you should be on a fixed rate mortgage. If you're using adjustable rate mortgages, that's on you. That's your own shit to figure out. You're a dumb fuck. You deserve to lose your
It's
house.
been good. It's been a good idea for the last 10 years to be on a variable rate mortgage.
It's called a gamble. Okay. If you want to gamble on a $200,000 plus loan and a variable rate, if rates go up, you deserve to lose your house.
Let's
Fuck you.
go.
You're gambling on the market 100%. So
High
that's
five.
so that's
Fuck the
number
poor.
one.
Let's go.
That's number one. Lose your house and
Well,
deal with
we're
it.
still at all-time like lows for
Base,
interest
actually.
rates. So I don't think people are going to lose their houses because a 5% is still, in comparison to 20 years ago, extremely good. It's still
5%.
extremely low rate.
Okay.
5% mortgage rates are very low in.
Okay. Holy
must move
shit.
to the
Hold
next
on.
one.
Wait. It's
Historical
just like so much
perspective.
dog shit information. If your rate was 3%,
How is that dog shit?
if
How
your
is that
rate
dog shit? It is a better rate than it was like 10, 15, 20 years ago.
The rate's not a comparison to what it was 10 or
Historically?
15 years ago. The rate is going to be compared to what you actually opened your fucking mortgage at. If you open your mortgage at a 2 or 3% rate, your rate bumps 2 points, your payment is going to go massively increasing. It doesn't matter if it was
Of course,
higher
but
10 or 15 years ago. You had a
Destiny.
mortgage.
Destiny.
What did she say?
Let me just say this point.
No, hold on. No, wait.
Destiny.
Stop.
You know we've printed more money in the past year than we have in years past, so you know that we have more money
That
out
has
there.
nothing to
which
do
is
with
gonna
anything.
lower-
That has nothing to do with anything.
You don't think
okay?
that lowers the value of
I don't-
money? The fact that there's more out there.
The USD
That's
is
what
literally
is good
outperforming
for
like
a
every
mortgage.
fucking currency in the world right now. What the fuck are you talking
There's,
about?
there's more of it,
Shut
so
the
that's
fuck
why
up,
we're
no.
having
Stop.
inflation.
No,
All right, we
stop.
have to go to the next one.
Inflation is good if
chill out.
you owe a bunch of money.
Yeah, which you
Thank
probably
you.
do.
This one coming in from Rumpley Depew says, "Can you ask Nick if he has hated my people ever since the time I filled an empty Fritos bag with salted Mohel scraps and he ate them all? What does that mean, Nick?"
I don't know what that means. Whose people is that?
This one coming in from Sausage Lore says, "Nick and Destiny, the Hispanic tag team duo. Let's go." Wow, that's pretty neat. This
Yeah,
one
we're
coming in from
BFFs.
Mike.
Holy
Huh?
shit! God
said, yeah,
damn
we're
it! I
BFFs.
can't stop
It's
people
pretty
from spamming.
This one from Minecraft player
slurs
says, "Shout out to
because
women." And
Hey,
the
who's this
fucking
black guy?
dumbass like
Huh?
YouTube algorithm.
Who's this
This-
black guy that just jumped on? Oh, wait, Doobie, you're
Oh,
black?
sorry, I didn't realize that
The fucking
thing got
dumbass
off.
YouTube algorithm.
I didn't know you were
like,
black.
deletes the message first.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
So I
love
can't actually
blacks.
select
Learn
it.
something new every day. D,
just
thanks
love
very
that.
much for your super sticker. I didn't see your question.
How do you talk?
What the
You
fuck
talk
is
like
that
an old
system?
man, Nick. What is going? It's like somebody
What?
took you. It's like you came out of like a
The
time
blacks.
portal from like 30 years ago.
What? He's black.
Black.
It's literally like somebody took like an old guy who was like living 30 years ago and like put him in a time machine and like and brought him here and and put him in a suit and that's literally
so
Nick
fucking
Fuentes.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for
Projected him into a
What?
14-year-old.
This one coming in from GJM.
30 years ago was only 1990, though. So
Pete, is that true? Oh my gosh, it's true. It says-
He's an old man in 1990. It's even further back.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I was born in the 19th century. Yeah.
GJM says, "For Brenton, what is the word woman referencing in this context specifically? How do you define a woman?"
Yeah, so I've said this 3 times now. My definition of a woman is for someone to do 2 things. 1, identify as a woman, and 2, be accepted by their community as a woman. Woman is a social role.
This one coming in from Light of the Twin Lamp says, we'll talk about that later. The Legend Riv says, "If you want info on
Yeah, it's the
women
stream
in
software's
ESG
problem.
funding,
I don't know why
namely
it does that.
environmental safety and governance, visit Ryan Dawson's Substack." What is everybody's thoughts on Ryan Dawson?
I think I've always said this. I think he's cringe. I mean, we agree on like 9/11 and all that, but he's like a bleeding heart liberal. He's like, oh, like I don't like Israel because they're mean to Palestinians, and I'm like, I don't like Israel because, well, you know,
All right,
you know
let's
the
move into the next one.
rest. Yeah, okay.
Any other fans of Ryan Dawson? Okay, this one coming in from Vasily says, "Destiny says democracy gives everyone a free choice to choose, but would he accept the argument that most Western countries put pressure on women to work, so it can't be called free choice?"
I mean, in that case, if you want to go fully deterministic, there's no free choice for anything. There's always pressures to do everything. There's going to be pressures from your church. There's going to be pressure from your community, from your school. Like everybody's pressured to some extent. We just kind of have to choose like how to balance those pressures out in society. And some of them might be obviously too far, but others can be like a little bit more hidden, right? Like boys are pressured to play video games in a way more than women are, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think
It's
you may be edging just slightly on a nirvana fallacy there, Destiny. Yeah, obviously certain things are going to have more pressure than other things. Nothing's perfect, but I think like there's specific things that we see happening economically that push people in a particular direction. I mean, like a good example was me and my wife are right now, we are weighing whether to have another kid, and the pressures that are on that is not just do we want another kid, it's what's the political situation like, how dangerous is it for this to happen, do we have the money, do we have the stability. So like the larger society puts a huge amount of pressure on people within it, and incentivizes certain behaviors and disincentivizes others.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I said that. But I'm just saying that there's always pressures. There's no such thing. Anytime you live in any sort of society, there's necessarily pressure. Like pressure might actually even be like an intrinsic property of just being a human. You've got biological pressures. You've got pressures in your family. Like there's always going to be pressures to do everything.
I would argue actually that it's an inherent part of being alive. You don't know who you are until you meet like some sort of thing that's not you.
Like the end of Evangelion. You ever see that show? It's like that.
That's like the one anime I haven't gotten into.
I think the distinction here that you can legitimately make is that when the government engages in pressure, when the government puts its thumb on the scale, that has a much bigger impact than other things, not than anything, but it has a big impact because the government ultimately has, monopoly on violence. So the ability of the government to like influence things through, for example, like affirmative action is just really powerful. And that's why you got to be really careful with any sort of legislation, is because when the government pressures things change. So
I super disagree. I think that there are some things that the government can influence, like the types of investments we make or the ways we pay employees. But there are other things that are really, really hard for the government to influence. So for instance, earlier we were talking about birth rates. This is something that a lot of governments around the world have been trying to incentivize. Like, how do we get people to have more kids? That's a really hard thing to do from a point of government policy. There's a confluence of like family matters, like economic opportunity, like housing markets. There's a lot of things that have to come together for people to make those decisions. It's not usually a simple button that you can push on the government to like produce more kids, except maybe in the case of like China, where you have like literally restrictive child policies or something.
I agree, but we have to ask the question in comparison to what, right? So the government has more ability than I think like most institutions in society to influence these things. So that's my point, is the government has like relatively a lot more power in most things.
True.
Yeah, potentially, but I think that there are other institutions that are really, really important that could play like huge factors as well. But I mean, like the government is a big one, but it's not.
Like educational institutions also have like huge influence, and like media institutions. Like there's so many institutions that have massive influence. So I don't want to say that like the government is the end all be all, but just that it has a special power in its ability to like enforce laws.
I will actually kind of agree with that a little bit in that, and I wanted to bring this up earlier because I know Nick is a big fan of Russia. The Russians give, I think, 2 years maternity leave, and the United States gives no maternity leave. Employers can use it if they want to. I remember just when I was moving from one job to another, a person to sell the health insurance for that job, and this was pretty good health insurance. She was like, "Oh yeah, we had my baby last year. It only cost $6,000." And you talk about declining birth rates. That's what it is. It's this huge environmental and economic pressure on families within first world nations because, in my opinion, we are being bled by the elites for as much labor for as little return on that labor.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we should have permanent maternity leave. It's called "You're a Mom, Leave." You're fired.
But that's not going to actually get what you want, though. You won't have, if you just kick people out of work without giving them a way to live, you're not going to get the birth rate. You're not going to get those white babies that you really, really want. Because again, people are going to have children when they are within a situation where they feel that they can have children.
Yeah, I agree. I think the state should incentivize it in other ways. I think they should pay. Like in Hungary, for example, they say you don't have to pay taxes after you have so many kids. And I like what Andrew Yang had to say, frankly, about reconsidering raising kids as work and finding a way to reward that and restructure society to reward that. I agree with you, honestly, about the elites. Maybe we just misunderstand exactly the structure of the elite and What is
well,
to be
yeah,
done?
you think it's a specific minority. I think it's rich people.
The
difference is that Breton thinks the elite are working 24/7, but Nick thinks they take off like Saturday evenings, basically.
That's funny.
That's good, Destiny.
That's
Coming
good,
in for
yeah.
Bulletproof Tony says PS is greater than IL. This one from Zayton says, I agree with Destiny. This one from Silent Zero says, Destiny, I did it and would not do it again. There is no amount of money or job title that can compare to the value of my kids.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's good. If you make that decision, you should have a right to. That's awesome. That's fine. I hope that's cool.
This one from Zayton again says, Destiny is the chosen one. He will save America. This one from Bullet Tooth Tony says, y'all see that Ryan Dawson versus Fuentes debate? Did you guys debate, Nick?
Uh-oh.
We did, yeah. We debated, I think, twice, or maybe just once. I'm not sure.
Ooh, juicy. And 3000 Mover says, thank you, Destiny, for being the voice of reason. You got a lot of fans out there, Destiny. Jake Lesba says, let the right wingers speak. It's a 2 versus 6, James. Was it really a 2 versus 6? I thought it was relatively. But JJ Cello.
I had trouble tracking who was on what side.
You know who got hammered on? A lot of you, Brendan, you got some pushback from your own team. But you know what? JJ Cello says, Marie, to prove Destiny's point, your mom traveled with 2 kids and a dog. What did she sacrifice to do that? Her retirement? Your college savings? If nothing, then who paid for that travel? The man?
Who's the cat?
Was that a cat?
Oh, Alex.
There's my cat.
Nope. She made a good investment before she had kids and it paid off.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So workers paid for it.
No. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
no, literally,
workers?
she made an investment in a company that extracts surplus value.
Did I say that?
That's the only way you can make money off of an investment. That's how the stock market works.
Maybe
Is
she
the
bought a lottery
only way
ticket.
to
Done by
invest
someone
money
else.
is a stock market?
If
bought a
you
lottery
invest
ticket?
money in a stock
Is that
market,
the only investment? I never said stock
what did
market.
she invest? Well, what?
Why
Did
do I
she
have
invest
to?
in
Why do I have to
bonds?
say? Well, no. Why do I have
Because
to?
there's
even
no
tell
other
you?
thing you can invest in.
What?
There's a
Maybe
lot
what
of
you
other
think.
things you can invest in. Like she could have
Economic
invested
literacy,
in house
level
or
1000.
Frustrating Stardust. This one coming in. Jamie Russell says, Trump Langle 2024. Are you a Trump fan, Brenton?
No,
The
I
biggest.
hate the man.
No, false.
Yeah.
Oh,
From
that's
hell's
right.
heart, I stab at
Did
thee.
somebody
For
say my
hatred's
name?
sake,
Yeah, that was me. I said,
steal
I said
my
they were
last breath
frustrating
at
you.
thee.
Out of quick curiosity, who do you guys think is going to be in the 2024 presidential election? Trump and Biden? Do you still think it's going to be Trump and Biden, Stephen?
I do.
Lord, I
Yeah.
hope not.
Michelle Obama.
Yeah, it seems like it's gonna
So
be
somebody, I do
Just
think
give
it's
me
going to be
Pete
Trump.
or Trump and Kamala, but more
So I
likely
do
Trump
think
and
it's
Biden.
going to be Trump and Biden, but I also somebody brought up that Pence might run, and it looks like with more and more time, that actually seems like a really good observation. I think that is actually that Pence is going to run at least in the primary. I don't know if he'll win against Trump, but yeah,
He
I
doesn't
think
have a
he's gonna-
chance. That'd be a waste of time.
This one
Yeah,
from
yeah.
GBO Farms. Israel has a high GDP and a positive birth rate.
Yeah, and that is one anomaly. But listen, it just goes to show, we're trying to understand modernity. I mean, that's really the argument here. And modernity is bound up with Westernism, Westernization, liberalism, technological progress, free markets, and free trade. And sometimes it's difficult to parse what is causing what exactly. But I mean, that's a good example of a country with a strong faith, a strong national identity, a high birth rate, even though they've got, to some extent, Westernization, as well as markets, as well as trade, as well as technological advancement. So, when you find those, those examples that buck the trend, it kind of shows what's really causing what. And there's a few examples like that. So.
You got it. This one from Silent Zero says, Destiny, check the mouse population study. Do you know what they're talking about?
Nope.
This one from Wesley Tart says, hello, really enjoy the channel. Question, is there anything Primetime Alex 99 Stein disagrees with Kent Hovind about? And do they want to debate? I doubt it. This
No,
one from
I want to debate Ken Hovind. I want to debate him.
I think you'd agree on everything. Wesley.
No, not everything.
Wesley Tart says, hope springs eternal. James, thanks for that. And Javid Benscombe says, Nick, you believe the earth is flat?
No, I believe it's round. I know that's cringe, but
Sunflower
I'm a
says,
round earther.
what does the F stand for in turf, Brenton?
It stands for feminist, but in my opinion, by throwing trans women under the bus, they are fundamentally undermining the claims to feminism. And you can see it in the fact that they are frequently like making common cause with people on the far right. Specifically, like Sargon of Akkad was made when he was taking the turf position in our debate. So yeah, I mean, the F does stand for feminist, but I don't think they should be considered feminist. Maybe people will disagree with me, but that's my opinion.
Well,
Isn't that kind of like
if I could say, like, I feel like you wouldn't disagree that I'm a feminist, Brenton, but I think Alex was making so, like, in some senses a valid point with some of this stuff, and I think it's too easily written off as somebody being a TERF when we're just trying to describe different populations within the category woman, right? So.
Well, I mean, TERF stands for trans exclusionary radical feminist. So I think that
it's still, you still need to deal with the arguments that are being put forward.
Yeah, they're real
TERF,
questions.
Therefore, I don't need to talk to you. It's like, that's kind of fine.
This one from Father Reynolds says, God, man, children, women, critters. What does that mean? Mr. Crab says, is it okay to have white babies? Is it okay to be white?
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's totally okay to be white.
This one,
it's okay to be white, but that's a white supremacist slogan. They're trying to slip it in.
Well, I am the savior of the white race.
I had no idea that was
yeah.
This one from Kyle James. Nick, do you really want any person to procreate? As far as I can tell, there is only one man on this panel. Let's see. They asked who you want to procreate with, Nick.
Me?
Justin KG says, why are liberals so focused on the minority if the majority suffers?
Because the majority has more power. I mean, I'm not a liberal. I'm an anarchist. But yeah, obviously you protect the minority because the minority has less power and therefore can be hurt and abused in a much larger way than a majority which has the ability to protect itself with sheer numbers.
This one from Cullivar. Question for Destiny. This can't be true, Destiny. Why is Star Wars The Last Jedi his favorite movie? Like he told Mahler. You really said that? And why is Rose his favorite Star Wars character? A team reigns supreme.
I mean, it's the best of the Star Wars. What am I supposed to say?
This one from Autism Forum says, can you ask Jesse from Pod Awful to sing Aerials by System of a Down? Thanks. Sure. Nikki says, James, your beard. Thank you for your kind words. Sasha Lord says, Doobie, why do trans imitate Instagram models?
I think there is some truth to the idea that trans people do tend to play into patriarchal stereotypes about women.
Wait, why did Doobie get asked this question?
Yeah. Well, I think it's because I was like defending it, I guess. But yeah, I think there's some truth to that, right? Just like with drag queens, I think there's some truth to them being like basically female blackface.
Yeah. To be fair, also tough. I did not clock you. So until you said something, I was 100% thought you were cis.
You lying bitch.
Interesting.
Nope.
Wait, so if I understand
about that,
I clocked it with the voice.
Is this true? Is this true that not all, but generally that trans people, let's say a person who's transing from male to female, it's just the word escapes me.
Morbing, that's what we call it in the community now, is morbing from male to female.
Morbing.
So go ahead.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah,
Is it true that these people it's like these people, sorry. What I'm trying to say is it true that like where it's like a sleek and fit woman and then like the bazongas, like like huge, like is that true? Is that what you mean by archetype, Doobie?
Are you confusing trans people
sorry,
with
I was laughing
drag
at
queens?
I think he's asking like, why do trans women try to go for a certain like female archetype, try to look a certain way? I think I have somewhat controversial opinions on this, but I think that like if you are someone who was raised as a man your entire life and like biologically you were filled with testosterone, and there's like a high prevalence of autism within the trans community as well. And so like if you are kind of a socially isolated person raised as a man and you are trying to you want to be a woman and you're trying to figure out what a woman is, I think that your conception of femininity is very likely going to be based off of a few different sources that are maybe not the most true to life. So like one of these is pornography, another one is anime. And so you see in like the trans community, a lot of people wear like thigh high socks and like little like anime skirts and stuff when they're early on in transition. And they emulate a kind of womanhood that is like very specific to the kind of women that they're aware of within their world. So I think that's why you see like certain trans like aesthetics, like the thigh highs and whatnot, developing is really because of that kind of dynamic. I think that as people morb further into their morbition, they kind of they just want to be like attractive, and like they've got an idea of like what is attractive by society standards, and that would be like, I don't know, I guess like the Instagram model look. And so like some people will go after that. That's not really something that is easy to achieve, but like I think that trans people probably pursue that for the same reason as cis women do ultimately.
I think that question was for me, but I totally agree with everything April or Taftaj just said.
I just want to say Alex clocked me before he clocked Taftaj, so
Well, Alex knows.
No, I knew April.
Not really clocked.
No, I knew April.
Yeah, we go
I just
way
didn't know
back.
if you were started. Yeah, we're tight.
You mean like take a jab at? Is that what you mean by clocked someone?
No, just
Well, I don't
realize that
know.
they're trans. But like,
I mean, I'm
Stardust
not
isn't,
trans.
but-
Radar.
I'm
like
not
radar
trans,
does.
But you are a turf,
Your
though,
dick
right,
went off.
Stardust? You're a
I'm not a
trans
turf.
exclusionary radical.
I'm not a
feminist?
turf. I'm not a turf.
Lame.
This one
I did not clock Doobie as black. That's the one that evaded me because he doesn't sound
black.
I'm still.
I think that was a
surprised.
fake reveal.
You know what I didn't clock? I didn't clock Nick as literally an old guy from 30 years ago. I didn't
Really, because I clocked that immediately. I think he has Benjamin
I love you,
disease.
Nick.
Well, you know what? He does have like the mannerisms of an old man, sometimes. So
What?
it's
The
not a
issue
bad
is-
thing. It's just a thing, So
I have a theory.
It's kinda
and
funny,
My theory is that Nick is an addict, and he's not an addict necessarily of drugs, but I've worked in radio for years and years. When you say radical, very, I guess things that you're not supposed to say, you get a shot of dopamine to the brain, and a lot of people, when they get pulled into like a radical hole, it's because they are self-medicating in some way. They're chasing that next hit of dopamine.
Do you think that's why
that
you're
they
an
get.
anarcho-communist?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm an anarcho-communist
another reason
for
for that as well.
a number of
Sure.
reasons. But I will say that I did recognize it in myself when I was working in radio, and it's one of the reasons I stepped out.
I'm not a shock jock, though. I mean, I make jokes.
And to be
I
fair to
enjoy
Nick,
that.
I think most people wouldn't assume that I'm black, right? I think that's totally a fair.
I would say Nick's biggest problem is he wakes up at 8 p.m. and that's morning for him.
That's true.
That's degenerate.
Yeah,
Not
you're
good.
right.
No, I'm
Nick.
basically a
The worst
vampire. I'll
thing.
throw Nick a bone there.
Curtis
Right,
Fowler
Steven.
says China's population will be half of what it is, or 50% of currently living folks in China will die by 2050. I can't find a projection for the first one.
It's between 2050 and 2100, or like 2100. So I think that's usually where the estimates range. And like you have to be like a little bit, obviously like predicting the future was just always difficult, but like by current trends, or if you guess that trends are going to accelerate or decelerate, you'll get different predictions.
Gotcha. GBO Farm says, why does Doobie continually talk about man-boy sex? You don't talk about
I
that was
find it
kinda weird.
fascinating for a ton of reasons that I'd love to talk to you about later.
That's gay.
It is. Let's see, Austin. It is interesting. This one from Austin Autism Forums. Please ask Jesse to sing anything by System of a Down. I have autism. Okay. Mark Lozano says, is anyone going to mention how women are hypergamous? Also,
That's not true.
SO to Nick, keep being awesome, champ. We love you.
Let's go.
Are women hypergamous, gang?
No.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not. Like, first off, like hypergamy isn't a thing in humans. But then second of all, what you're trying to say is women are constantly trying to date and marry up. I mean,
True.
everyone is trying to get the best partner that they can, that they vibe with the best. Women are under added economic pressure to find someone who they don't just like, but can also provide for them. I mean, you mentioned Taft, the sort of the MRS degree. I mean, there's specific economic reasons why they would do that. I think what's happening is that some people who feel like they can't get a woman blame it on hypergamy, when in reality, women are like 51% of the world at the moment. So like, there's actually more women than men.
I don't know what that has to do with anything.
It means there's enough partners for every single man.
Yeah, but that's not how that plays out. Like, we know that sex is decreasing for like millennials, but that's not true for like the most attractive, like most competent guys. They're having way more sex, and so like the slack needs to exist somewhere.
Where are you getting that information?
From OkCupid data specifically. They did like a big study.
If I recall correctly, I remember seeing a study just a little while back that it was like a few years behind the male virginity study, but essentially virginity it showed in the study that virginity was on the rise for women too. I would have to look into it again, maybe not at the same extent that it is for men, but it was showing that virginity was rising for women as well.
Yeah, millennials are having, or like the youngest generation is having way less sex, and it is disproportionately, that figure is contributed to by men, and like a very specific group of men, which is like men who are like on the bottom half of like looks, attractiveness, competence, and whatnot. But like, it is in general, sex is just
why say so many words when you could just say gripers? Sorry.
Just Nick type
no
men.
bitches. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Nick, have you seen that meme where they put you on your face on Flanders when he's, or not Flanders, who's the guy who's gay in The Simpsons and likes Mr. Burns? Which one is that guy?
But we must move on.
Yeah. He's got like women dancing in like bikini tops and bottoms, and he's cringing away from them. They stuck your head in that. Have you seen that one?
No.
But
that was
next up. Alphabet says to everyone, do you think the cost of living spaces, and typical work arrangements in a society affect the fertility of that society?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, but I think maybe people overestimate that.
This one can be on. Rachel Wilson says, buy my book on how feminism comes out of the occult, and Alex is a national treasure. It's Rachel Wilson.
I appreciate that.
Jesus
Thank you.
Christ.
Hey, Brent, it's a fact. I am, so deal with it.
Feminism comes out of the occult. Where do you find
it? Is what it is. I'm a national treasure.
This one from Leslie Flemons says, for Nick, should women be blamed for being raped or sex trafficked?
What? No. No, I don't think so.
This one from Robin says, what are the great female empires of history? If there are none due to males keeping them from greatness, isn't that proof of their, let's see.
It's a great
what
point.
Does Toto mean? Like TOTO. If their inability to do so, I don't know. So what are the great female empires of history, Brenton?
The great female empires of history?
Yes.
I don't think there are any female empires, but again, like the only empires that we've had, again, rose about 6,000 years ago, and except for like the Mongols, they were all they were all single godded, like it was either Christianity or Judaism or Islam. There's something about that particular type of religion that emphasizes like male leadership and also emphasizes empire and conquest. So yeah, there probably weren't any female empires that we have record of, but again, that's just because the only cultures that do empire also tend to be heavily patriarchal.
Oh, well, hey, but I want to say this thing.
That's like I'm gonna outflank Nick on the right here. The real based answer actually is women are currently presiding over the largest empire in all of human history. The United States has become an empire ran by women. That's why it's being driven into the ground. Women and feminine energy are infecting men all over the United States. They're ruining the schools. They're ruining the institutions. Like that's what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Well, why can't women get drafted?
51% of the world's population is women. It's not enough. We need to up those numbers.
Yeah, but why can't women get drafted if the world's ruled by women?
Because no one passed a law that says women have to get drafted. I would prefer no one be drafted.
Women are running things behind the scenes. They don't want to get drafted. They want men to die so they can continue to have control.
Why can men get drafted and women can't? Wouldn't that say there's a war on men, that we have to be forced to fight in a war?
No, it says that the military thought that it could do
men are stronger and better. Yeah, exactly.
No,
yeah,
it's going to expand faster.
Well, I mean,
by drafting men, but there hasn't been a draft since Vietnam. So
hey, World War III with Ukraine, we just gave them another 500 million. You got Nancy Pelosi and her big titties are all in Taiwan. You never know, dude.
I would also say that if America's a female empire, then that would be a credit to me because America got its ass kicked by the Taliban. So it was literally literate guys in rags beat the shit out of women with thermal and UAV and freaking stealth bombers.
Hang on.
A bunch of guys at Toyota Tundras.
We got Taliban every day. If it's women with drones versus boys in the Taliban, I got Taliban all day. Money's on the Taliban.
Nick, no empire has ever beaten Afghanistan in the long run. Not Alexander the Great, not the Soviets, not the Americans. You cannot control
I've never heard this before. Afghanistan's a graveyard of empires. I've never heard that before.
So then why are you saying stupid shit if you assume that you did see it before?
And they got their ass kicked by the Viet Cong, and we got our ass kicked by Iraq, and we get our ass kicked all the time by the boys, or by ISIS.
Perhaps
not that I support ISIS. ISIS
that
created
war
by
is
Israel.
actually really hard, and empires have difficulty against this new, more or less new tactic of permanent.
Because we're not grasping the nettle. Okay.
This one coming in from Robin says, "What are the great female empires?"
You just asked that one.
Way to go, Robin, dumbass.
Duffkey says, "Please settle the debate. Are you natural? I'm all natural, only creatine." John Coyne says, "Democrats changed for the definition of what a recession is for Brandon." Is this true?
Wow. Yeah, actually true. I heard that one of the reasons why Biden has been so fucking slippery lately is because he's been up late every night trying to edit that Wikipedia page. Him and Kamala, I think, are in the Oval Office on their MacBooks. They keep trying to change the definition. It's not working. We caught him.
This one from Ghosted Captain Titus Frost says, "Revolutionary War has fought to free this country from the very same banking cartel that runs the central bank."
Oh no.
Never mind that one. Let's see. Not a Fed.
That's legit.
Thanks for your super sticker. And Fish Died LOL says, "Can Destiny do the economics rap again?" Do you have a rap, Steven?
No.
This one from
Yes, do it. Do you not have it? Economics rock. Economics can suck on my cock. Economics are really gay. Economics every freaking day. Inflation station. Joe Biden is retarded. When I go to the club, I still get carded. I'm a pimp on a blimp. Inflation can suck my dick. All right.
You're like someone transplanted the brain of like a middle schooler into a semi-adult body.
What are you talking about? This dude's a fucking genius. How dare you, Brenton?
Thank you, Stardust. Thank you. Yes.
You know what the real topic should have been? I don't know. Did anybody chastise Alex for his disgusting treatment of AOC earlier?
Shut up, dude. That's my girlfriend, Steve. So listen, you need to shut your trap. That's how we make love. And that's how I, my sexual energy.
Actually,
yes, and she liked it. And she liked it.
Unironic, degenerate fucking behavior. Super disgusting. I'm surprised you guys didn't go over
just because you're gay and you have an open relationship with your wife, you let her get banged by other dudes. See, that's just like AOC, Riley.
Careful,
I know,
Alex.
but see,
here's the
it's
thing.
Funny. Steven, you let other dudes bang your girl. So you're calling me a sexual degenerate while a guy's jizzing on your wife.
I'm calling you a sexual degenerate because you're actually unironically
guys are jizzing on your
getting this wrong. You're getting this wrong.
Guys jizz on your wife,
actually
and I'm the sexual degenerate.
At work, actual degenerate, yeah.
Yeah, he's so alpha. He's so alpha that he's not intimidated by other men's jizz. Okay, men's jizz don't phase him because he's so alpha.
Yeah, you're so alpha. Other guys can blow their load on your girlfriend. And
absolutely.
So
listen, there might be 100 guys.
Awesome. There
might be 100 BBCs blowing their load right now, but I'm still not out there sexually harassing women. How crazy is that? Huh?
Oh, really? That's better. Oh my God. Come on,
Alex. Tu quoque fallacy. Look it up.
Listen, Strive.
Dudes blow their loads in his wife or his
tu quoque fallacy. Look it up.
They said, "Let Destiny finish his point on the economy. Way too many dumb points that cannot be left to rest." I think they were enjoying.
I think the point I was just trying to make is that it's hard to tell if we're actually in a recession. It's a really hard thing to measure. People will focus on certain figures on like the CPI or whatever, or people will look at like mortgage rates, or people will look at like 2 quarters of GDP growth. But there's also like really weird things happening right now too. Like unemployment is very low. We don't have like a huge unemployment crisis right now. Wages are growing really quickly in certain sectors that are outpacing inflation, even depending on the sector you're talking about. So it's a very weird economic time we're in. And the idea that like everything is shit just because gas prices are are high is kind of silly, and it's not tracking on to the lived experiences of a lot of Americans at the moment.
Yeah, but the employment
Shopify just got rid of 10% of its workforce.
Who?
That's like Shopify.
No, who the
That's
fuck
like a
asked?
bunch of
Why
companies.
the fuck would I care about what one company or like?
Yeah,
like
but
offload
that's
some
not
people?
one company.
Let's
That's
go.
just you're seeing it happening. It's
no, you're
rippling
not-
throughout
you're
the
not-
industry.
what's the
It's
other-
all
when you look at
that.
the-
You
when
just
you look at
happen
the-
to have a shop through Shopify. Is that why you're paying attention to that?
No, you just look at
No,
look at
it's
the unemployment
because
rate.
like I see everyone freaking out on TikTok. It's
You see-
hilarious.
oh, okay.
But
Why not
like,
just
it's
look-
in
just-
the
Okay, so
news.
that's because they have a Shopify. All right,
Just
that makes sense.
look at the unemployment rates, right? They're very, 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 very low. The idea that like we're in like a traditional recession where everybody's getting fucked and like everything is something that is just not true. It's a very
Yeah, but
weird
that's
time we live in
because-
economically.
Not
Labor
everybody's getting
force
fucked, just your
participation
girlfriend,
rate.
Stephen.
All right.
It's
Nice.
because a
Labor
million
force
people are
participation rate is
dead.
lower.
Like
Oh,
that's
the
why
labor
we're
force,
having
that's
this,
not
in my opinion.
Because
There's a
of
million
labor
people are
shortage,
dead.
because
They
people
used to
dropped
be
out of the
start
labor
us.
force. That's
This
why
one
wages
from-
are rising. That's why unemployment's low.
Dandy says people who subscribe to moral relativism will never agree with people who believe in objective good and evil. Thoughts? Jesus Christ is King, Revelation 2:9.
There is absolutely no such thing as objective good and evil. And in fact, I wanted to get to this because what I saw actually out of Nick earlier on was he was attempting to derive an ought from an is, which we have known is physically impossible since David Hume. Like you can describe the world as things ought or as things are, but you cannot say that these are this way, therefore it ought to be this way, especially not within the confines of morality.
Well, yeah, because you don't believe in God. Okay, I don't believe in
Whoa,
David
whoa,
Hume.
you
I
didn't
believe
ask.
in God.
I'm a Buddhist, dude. So I do.
Oh my gosh,
This
gets
one-
better and better.
I don't see you. You want to talk with me about Buddhism? We can do it.
I don't. I'm not interested in that.
Well, that's all right because I used to be a Catholic, and I can know that you actually are a heretic.
Oh,
Like,
really?
you were like the definition of a heretic.
Why
This
is
one
that?
coming in. Samir says for equality and 50-50, but usually once granted, the ex underdog starts chipping at your 50%. Day one, don't make me say God in the Pledge of Allegiance. Day two, I'm offended that you say God.
Oh,
Right.
thanks.
Is it true that the left is clamping down more and more on
Questions are
theists
so
or religious folks?
boring.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
In what ways?
Why?
Like,
Why do you guys
I'm-
think that?
I just
Wait,
am
hold
not
on. I have a
prepared
point.
to
Didn't they
have,
just
like,
win a
deep
case in the Supreme Court about like
conversations
getting to
all of
pray in
these.
public schools or some shit? I thought that.
Yes.
Yeah, I
they
know,
did.
but why
Yeah,
was it
the left
illegal
have to do
before
it.
that? Yeah, why
Because
did
of
they? Why did it
separation
have
of
to go to
church and
court?
state.
Oh,
Yeah,
when
hold
you're
on. Do you
doopy,
think that
doopy,
was?
you got
Well, I would just like to know, like, in what ways they're clamping down on religious people.
A guy tried
Yeah.
to pray during a football game and he got fired from his job. That's how.
And he,
But that's
and
not
he took
them
it to court. He won the
clamping down.
case.
He had to go
Like-
all the way to. So yeah, I know. So that shows you there's a war on it. He had to fight in order
No,
to
it
get that right to do
He
it.
probably planned
It just-
that
it shows that the
specifically
school-
to
No,
do
he
that.
didn't
Sounds like
plan
an-
it.
Okay,
Conspiracy
okay. The
theorist. Go get
planning,
your
the
tinfoil
planning is too
hat.
much.
Go get your tinfoil
Your
hat.
name
Hold
is
on,
literally
hold on, please.
Conspiracy
Wait,
Cast.
please, no,
I'm on the grind all the time. I know, but I'm just saying.
Right.
Come on, you know he didn't. He didn't.
But so
plan
okay,
that.
so to be clear, so like, is there some other thing? Because I think even if you were to try to make that argument, pointing to one dude getting fired because he prayed in the middle of like a school event is not enough to justify like a clamping.
Well, they
down
took
on
out
the war
under
on
God
religion.
from the Pledge of Allegiance. So there you go.
Yeah, I know.
Wait,
they
did
did.
they really?
Democrats are very.
No,
there are
they
a lot
didn't.
of very religious
Yes, they
Democrats.
did.
So I mean, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
So
Wait, did they
clamping-
actually
so the
take out
clamping-
under God from the Pledge of Allegiance? Did I miss this?
Yes.
No, they didn't.
Yes.
But fun
Yes, they
fact.
did.
The Pledge of Allegiance was created by a socialist.
Oh, well, and then
cares?
also didn't they add that under God part in 1952? I hadn't heard anything about
I
them
don't
taking
know
it
if it
out.
was in the pledge, but they did add the under God to the money in 1950.
Eisenhower added under God. Yeah.
What in
so
what?
it's
Yeah,
like-
okay.
Occupy Democrats became a human being and walked among us. And that's
That's
Oh,
the
shoot,
worst
I just looked it up
possible
to verify that I wasn't talking out of my ass. You're pretty
being
close.
liberal. Facebook
1954, Eisenhower added
became
it to the
man.
pledge.
this one coming in from Flop Tina says Stardust described Nick perfectly. Ask about his. Let's see. Also glad to see Marie and Alex are here. Next up, Nicholas Federico says howdy from Texas. War on humanity, in particular men, both men and women. Though space is 100% fake. Who will be POTUS in 2024? God bless. Nick means victory, but Alex wins.
Wait,
I'll
Alex, do
take
you think
it.
space is fake?
I don't know if it's exactly how they describe it because I don't think you can look through a telescope at something
You think there's
thousands
a
of light years
firmament?
away.
If there's a war
don't
on
know.
men, there's not enough of a war on men. We need more.
Wait, do you think glasses are real? Alex?
Eyeglasses?
Yeah, does that work?
Yeah, I think your wife has to wear them when guys are jizzing on her face. So she doesn't
Nice.
get
Do you
pink eye.
think microscopes are like real? Like
Why
when your
do you keep
girlfriend's trying to find your dick, does that work? Or like if microscopes
Well,
and glasses
why
work,
don't you just ask
if
your
microscope-
wife if my
if
dick
microscope-
works?
Why do you keep bringing
Do
it
you want me
up?
to ask
Are
my
you
wife if
jealous?
she needs
Are
to use
you
a
jealous
microscope
that
to
you're
find
not
your dick?
bringing up
I'm not
Wait, can I
jealous.
ask
I
you-
think he called me. He said that I'm a sexual harasser. Yet he literally lets
You are a
dudes
sexual
jizz
You
harasser.
on
keep
his
talking
wife.
about cum
Let's
on
move on to the
people's
next
faces.
topic.
It sounds like you want
Because
cum
that's
on your face,
gross.
bro.
No,
Okay,
when
no,
you let it
Alex,
have it on your
Alex,
girlfriend, I
you
think that's
are a sexual
disgusting.
harasser. There's
Well,
no other way to
just
just
describe
curious
it.
if you think
Alex,
that
you were kind of pinging my gaydar when I first met you.
if you think that glasses are real, I'm just curious why you can't think telescopes are real. Isn't it kind of like the same?
No, I think
concept, or-
telescopes are real. I just don't think, looking at a telescope, you can tell everything about a planet or something like that. So I don't think they know
What?
everything
Wait,
about
what?
other planets.
Anonymous one says, James, can you set up a Vosh versus Nick debate? I don't know. Destiny, what do you think? Do you think your buddy Vosh should go for it?
Vosh doesn't debate right wingers anymore.
This one
I
from
would be all
PP,
for it, 100%.
Yeah,
PP
Bosch is afraid
McGee
of Nick, unironically.
says Nick is handsome and smart. This one from Mr. Crab says, if all it takes is to, quote, identify as a woman and be accepted as a woman, is Rachel Dolezal a black woman because she identifies and is accepted as a black woman?
No, because race is not a social role. Race is like a
come on.
technology employed
Wait,
by
isn't
the
race
state.
what people look like? Isn't race kind of? Never mind.
Race
Didn't you
isn't a
say earlier-
social role.
Yeah.
Didn't you
do you
say
got,
earlier
Judy?
that woman is a social role and it's an idea?
Yeah.
And it's okay. So what's if you're saying that race is not?
He thinks
that?
that race
Like, I
is
understand-
more tangible than
Well,
sex.
no, I don't
Okay,
think it's
so
more
I would say
tangible. I think it's
gender is
realized in a
more.
different
I would
way.
say gender is more. Not gender. Sex is more tangible than
Significantly
race.
more
Absolutely.
tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
significantly more tangible. Right. I mean, the reason we have the races that we have right now is it was convenient to the Elizabethans. Like, race is used by the state as a means of policing groups under its power that it considers to be unruly.
So, Brenton,
it's-
do you think it'd be
yeah.
better if people could just identify into race?
Um,
Because then it wouldn't be policed by
No.
the state, right?
no,
Yeah, if this is a
because
tool of the state to,
the
to suppress the
people
masses.
don't
Why wouldn't we
identify.
reject it?
Like people don't identify. Like if
You
a-
don't
if a
think that people
judge-
identify as different races?
If a judge or a cop is going to treat someone worse because of their race, if it's
Like
have something
Doobie over
happen to
here.
that.
Like
Yeah, it's
me,
not. It has nothing to
yeah.
do with them identifying as one race or the
Wait,
other.
so
It
for
has to do
somebody
with
to
So
the
go
truly
back
be
to my
black-
Value
original
call.
question.
Somebody to
Do
By the
you
way,
think
Nick is
the
the dude who
world would
calls
be
911.
Do you think
1%
the
of
world
time.
would be
True.
better
1% of
if
time.
it was a world where people could identify into race without having it projected onto them by a cop or whatever? Do you think that'd be a better world?
without it being projected onto them.
Where
It
people
would
just
be a better-
identify and that's it.
I think you're defining race out of relevant existence. It is the projecting onto them by sovereign power.
But
that
you think it would
causes
be a
that.
better world,
Once.
right? Where Rachel Dolezal can identify as a black woman and be a black woman, right?
So in the event that we had a world where black people were not targeted by the state, but were somehow still a race, sure, whatever, I don't care.
Wait, hold on. Can I? Because it seems like you're saying that if there were
I
a
think you
black
give
person in the
away the
United
argument,
States,
but yeah.
if there were a black person in the United States who for some reason hadn't interacted with systemic oppression, hadn't been dealt with racist cops, maybe wasn't selling drugs, so didn't interact with like a racist judge, right? If this person would be less black than other black people,
They'd be a
who had
white
interacted-
presenting black.
I mean,
yeah.
in
Like,
the
is
sense
that-
that like
Is there something like inherent about being black that requires you to like be a criminal or like interact with police? Like, what do you?
it's how the state perceives you.
Okay, so
If-
to answer the
if-
question then, so would they be less black than a black person who had gone through all those things?
No,
Why not?
because
Wait,
it would be pure luck
If-
that they didn't.
What?
If I could, if I could, I think you guys are already on this like line, but I have argued this before just for fun, but I think you guys are pretty much at this point already. But when somebody transitions to being a woman, the way that I've heard it explained is that when that woman, because as soon as you start presenting as a woman, you inherit all of the oppression that woman get in society, whereas you can't really do the same thing with race. You can't really like transition into a race. I don't know how accurate that is, but I thought
there's also biological differences between trans women.
I thought we were going somewhere different. Oh my god!
No, good God, no.
Do you think there are biological differences in the races?
Good catch, Steve.
No, there are no biological differences whatsoever.
Okay, so evolution
Not a
stopped
single one.
evolution
Yeah, there
stopped
are.
Like
the
pigment
skin,
in the
basically.
skin is not a biological difference.
Doesn't have anything to do with race.
Based tranny in a MAGA hat.
The
Wait,
evolution
what
that
the
led to
fuck
difference
are
with
you
skin
saying,
pigments
dude? You're saying
stopped-
pigment in
it
the skin
stopped at
has
the-
nothing to do with race.
It is how someone is perceived based upon but it's like putting the cart before the horse.
Wait, but the
if there was a
evolution
person
that led
who
to the
was
differences
genetic,
in skin pigmentation, are you saying that evolution stopped at the skin? It didn't go any deeper than that.
Let's go.
that's not evolution. So no, you like
what? Why do you think?
Okay,
black
why do black
skin?
people have sickle cell anemia more than white
Wait,
people?
hold on, no, wait. Why do
it's
white
not
people
black
have white
people
skin?
that. Oh my God. Okay, this is like an entire debate here.
It's not that complicated.
It's only black people who come from a very specific part of Africa that have.
Why do you think there are
sickle cell
differences
anemia.
in skin tone?
Okay, well, why don't white people have it then? If
Why do you think there are differences in skin tone, like pigmentation, melanin, etc.? Like, why do you think there are differences?
I mean, those are inherited.
It's because
Why?
hell
Where
burned
did it
us
come
because we
from?
sin more.
What?
So
Where did this come from?
Where did what come from?
Oh God, I'm sorry. You're gonna
You say
fucking-
you saying like
the
where did it come
reason
from?
why
It
you
came from their
can't
parents, most
transition
likely.
races is because it's inconvenient to the progressive narrative. Okay,
Yes.
that's like the fundamental
No,
reason.
wrong. Okay, hold on. Jesus fucking Christ. The reason why is because you don't have your brain doesn't have a fucking race. You don't have an internal experience of race.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's trying to go to.
But that's why progressives would argue that you should theoretically should be able to transition races
Because
because
you can't transition race. That doesn't make sense. No, hold on. That'd be like transitioning ages. It
No,
doesn't make any
it's
sense to
social
transition
rules.
race.
It's social rules.
No,
is what
it's
the
not
progressives
fucking
say.
social rules. What are
That's
you
what
talking
he's
about?
arguing.
That's what he's arguing.
I don't know.
That's what he's saying right now.
Wait, that's who's saying?
Brenton.
Brenton is not a progressive. He's an anarcho whateverist.
Okay, anarcho with whatever is
Okay,
then.
just don't, okay, 'cause-
anarchist.
yeah, as a progressive on the panel, that is not my view. Okay, you cannot be transracial, and there's
Okay,
a
not
fundamental
you
difference between
then.
the internal experience of race, which doesn't exist, versus the internal experience of sex, which I think does exist.
Which
Yeah,
is
the
what I was
internet-
trying to
the-
say when I
yeah.
said there are biological differences. Like they've done brain scans of trans people, and like the brain is closer to the gender that
But
they
Brenton, you don't
identify with,
believe
as
this.
opposed
You
to
don't
mine.
believe that you need to like prove that you have a certain brain to transition. Like you're not a
No,
trans
why
medicalist.
would I?
No, exactly. This is my point, right? Because you believe
the-
that people
the-
should have the right to change whatever they want about their gender presentation, to take whatever hormones they are, and to like be accepted into society
Well, yeah,
as that,
'cause I'm an
regardless
anarchist.
of whatever's going on in their brain. Like that is the progressive position, as far as I'm aware, is that you should have the freedom to do that, right? And so
I mean,
I think
yes,
it would be
but that's like I'm an anarchist. Literally, everyone should have the freedom
You
to do
are?
everything for the most part.
Yeah, so I think like the consistent thing to say would be that like it shouldn't matter what is in your brain, but you should be able to like
I'm not
paint your
saying
skin
that it-
color, do whatever you want as long and be like accepted into society.
Yeah.
I think that's
I'm
the
not
consistent
saying that it
argument.
matters. Look, I'm not saying that it matters. Like what's in your brain. What I'm doing right there is I'm drawing a disanalogy to prove that Rachel Dolezal is not analogous to a trans person's experience.
I do
Now
agree
you
on
can
that,
disagree
yeah.
with me on that, but
No.
that's specifically pointing to the brain as a relevant difference.
Yeah, so I can say that because I'm a trans medicalist, okay? I think there is like a relevant biological difference here. And that's that like trans people have like dysphoria, like a medical condition, which is why they're transitioning. And I don't think that exists for like transracial people. I think it's just like attention grabbing histrionics. So like I think that's the difference.
We're
Call her a turf. She's a turf. Call her a turf. Is she a
Hey,
turf?
Doobie's not black. That was a fake out. He's trolling us. You're not black. I knew it.
Yeah,
This one coming
Timmy,
in.
you look
You're
exactly
fake.
how I thought you
Couldn't
would.
resist. I'm just
Didymus
gonna fuck
black.
says, Nick, if the America became a Catholic theocracy, it would no longer be America.
No, that's not true. That's not true because Catholicism is more Christian than Protestantism. So people go, "Oh, America's a Protestant nation." It's like, okay, well, England was a Catholic nation, and
wait,
so
hang
the
on
Catholic
though.
Church is the mother of all the nations.
Well, why
But
not just
people were
go back
going
to
up-
England then?
What?
Why not just go back to England then?
Because we're in America. It's about.
Wait, hold on. I want to hear the theological argument. I'm curious. You say the Catholic Church is the birthplace of all of Christian religion, right? Because everybody broke off from the Catholic Church because they gave up on us. Okay, they're losers. But Could you not argue that the Catholic Church is kind of like a break off of Judaism, that Christianity came from Judaism, and that's kind of like a betrayal of
No, because rabbinical Judaism happened after the death of Christ. The Jews of the Old Testament, their Messiah came. His name was Jesus.
Yeah, but what about the ones that don't believe that? The ones that don't believe that he's the Messiah. He's just another prophet. Aren't you like breaking off from them like Protestants broke off from the Catholic Church?
No, because Christianity fulfilled that. It's a continuation.
You're begging the question. They didn't believe that it fulfilled that, of course, right? Just like you don't believe that Muhammad is the prophet of fucking Allah or whatever,
wrong,
right?
And they're objectively wrong. And then they went and they wrote down their oral tradition in the 3rd and 5th century in Babylon and in Jerusalem, and it's called the Talmud. And they worship. Well, in the Talmud it says that the rabbis correct God. That's a different religion. So if anything, rabbinical Judaism is a deviation, because the fulfillment of the Old Testament is the New Testament. And objectively, rabbinical Judaism is a deviation from that.
All I'm saying is that if you like Catholicism so much, Nick, maybe you should go back to, England or wherever you came from. So
okay,
it would probably be Germany.
You should go back to like Pakistan
Light of the
or
Twin
whatever,
Lamps.
India.
Light of the Twin Lamp says, to Nick and Doobie and anyone who wants to add their opinion, thoughts on the FBI no longer collecting race data in regards to crime.
Is that true?
I'm not aware of that happening.
So for Nick and Doobie in particular, they asked.
I just Googled news stories. I don't see any of that. Is that?
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, sorry, I was draining my penis. I don't know if that's true. If it were true, it's really stupid. I don't think that they should do that.
But they do that in other countries.
Yeah,
like in Germany, they stopped doing that with migrants, and they do this all the time because reality is undeniable.
Well, or they know what happens when racism gets out of control in Germany.
Yeah, crime stops.
Well, I think if there are specific communities that are having issues with crime, we need to be able to target those communities to like fix those problems, right?
That's true.
Sure.
So
that's true. Germany targeted those communities, right?
This one from appreciate your question. Samir says maybe Ben Shapiro will run. He's a loyal following. Maybe. Sausage Lord says, Nick, thanks for asexual representation on the panel. Brian Cleary says, Nick and Destiny is my favorite bromance. When is the podcast? Jake says,
soon. We're working on it.
Jake says, Nick, if you had to marry Stardust, let's see. All right, that's weird. Bushy says, Doobie.
Whoa, let's.
I can't.
Okay, all right.
This one says, Bushy, Doobie. Oh, that's Nikki says, Jane, appreciate it.
Wait, was it meant to be an insult? If it was, I want to hear it. It'd be.
No, it's not an insult. It's just
lame.
They're asking why you're black. I don't get it. I think they're trying to like trigger people or something. I don't know. Is that what they say?
I do identify as a black man. It's
trying
true.
to trigger people
Sometimes.
But Nikki, thanks for your kind words, says, but why is it so hard to admit that men and women are different?
I don't think anybody doesn't admit that men and women are different.
Are you sure nobody does?
Yeah, I'm certain men and women are different.
Oh, okay. Prison Palace says, what does Nick think of Deborah's role in the Bible?
I don't know.
This one from Yo says, okay, I think this is sincere, so they're not trying to trigger you, Taft. They says, was April's decision to transition influenced by porn brain poisoning from a young age? Maybe they are trying to trigger you.
No way is that a trigger thing.
I was actually like somewhat late to the party when it came to like, I don't know, sexual awakening and masturbation. So probably not in my case, but who knows?
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Jessica Puzzle says, Marie's mom's investment was having a lot of money. Also, Stardust wouldn't say it, but let's see. Tell Taff I would 100% lesbian her up. Okay, thanks.
I just felt like it was inappropriate for me to say it right now, Taff. I would have called you after.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this one from Ryan Rockwell says, as the only known virgin on the panel, shouldn't Nick have more to say on the topic? Sex in millennial demos. What's his take on why he gets no females?
Well, as I said, I am an asexual incel, so it's a little bit different for me. I'm in sort of the category of eccentric genius, asexual incel. But I talked about it. The problem is feminism. The problem is fertility rates declining all across the board because women are nasty these days. That's not my situation. I'm an incel. But as far as other people, women are not cool. Okay.
Hold on. Can you wait? Why do you keep calling yourself an incel? Shouldn't it be a volcel? Wouldn't that be a better term?
I am an incel.
So you want women, but you can't get them.
I'm an internet celebrity and an involuntary celibate. Also, I am asexual.
Wait, hold on,
so
Nick,
I don't want to have
Nick,
sex
let's
with
be real.
anyone.
There are plenty of women out there who'd suck your pee before you, right?
I don't think that's true. I'm
Of course
dark.
it's
I'm like
true.
Ryan Gosling. I'm like
there are women on my server.
Driver,
There are women
like
on my
that
server who
man.
simp over you and talk about how hot you are. I'll
I
introduce
don't think
you to
that's
them.
true.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Change your
sure.
whole life now.
Didn't you have like a whole thing with somebody who like sent you a super chat or something, and they were hitting on you, and then you did a whole rant about it?
Oh, she was crazy.
Nick, the last time you were on my server, you almost got it deleted. But I love you, and I want to change your life. Okay, so if you visit us, I'll 100% set you up with a new girl. Okay, we'll get your dick sucked. We'll fly her out for you. It'll be a whole thing.
That's a mortal sin. Also, I am asexual and I am an incel. And the thing is, okay, women are obese, okay, and they're rude.
So you have a small dick.
They're not all obese.
I have a big dick, actually, and a big pair of balls. Not that it's anybody's business.
All right, let's move on to the next one. First
and
name,
Stardust
last name.
business as
Does
well.
Alex, did it look as big in person as it does on TV? What are they talking about, Alex?
On TV, my dick. It's a nice dick. I mean,
all right, let's do the next one. Jake Lesba says, I noticed that. Let's see. I noticed that Marie disagrees with Nick on the ultimate role of women. Marie, will you have a dialogue or debate with Nick on this topic?
I don't even know if we really even got into that conversation. I'm not sure if we totally disagree or not.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and also you're not even Christian, so I don't know what's going on with that.
I'm just like, I am, but I'm like not practicing, so I think it's wrong to say you are something if you don't go to church and
Nick,
do all that.
Can we take a moment to shit on all these? Nick, join me here for a moment. Can we take a minute to shit on all these non-denominational Christians, these quote unquote spiritual people that don't go to church, don't have a real relationship with God, don't have a real commitment to any particular sect? What are you? You might as well be crystal worshipers at that point. I think that's degenerate.
That's why I said I don't want to like say I am anything, because it's like I think if you don't have a denomination and all this stuff, it's kind of like you're LARPing at that point.
True.
I agree.
So, like,
Destiny's so
Marie,
based on this point.
Marie, do you
Absolutely.
own any crystals or like frankincense? Like,
No.
okay.
No.
No progress, says Alex 1. George Nada says Nick's thoughts about Sam C. Guzzler. Okay. Nick's thoughts about Sam Cedar claiming to have emails to quote out Nick. Is this true? Did Destiny's buddy Sam say that he has those emails?
Yeah, I've heard that. And I think he said that one other time. But, as always with these things, people say that and then
Challenge him to release the tapes. Where are they?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, he said it a few times. I'd be very curious to see what that is.
There's the call out. There it is. Nick Fuentes challenging Sam Cedar. It's like Kira and fucking L on Death Note right now on live TV, challenging him to release the tape. Let's see if he does it.
Well, yeah, and there was that thing a few weeks ago on what is it, Crazy Days and Nights, where they're like, oh, someone's selling a gay sex tape of Nick for $100,000. Oh boy, this America First is over, and then nothing ever materializes. Yeah, I'd be very curious to see what that's all about, because that's been claimed for a little while.
True.
This one from Robin says, purpose of women is procreation. The war is denying this.
My God. So nothing has an inherent purpose. Women do like reproduce, but that's not a purpose. Nature doesn't have a mind to give something a purpose. Like it's him projecting that purpose onto the process of reproduction.
Why does my cat yell at me because she's not pregnant? Is it not her purpose to get impregnated and have babies?
Correct.
And is it not women? Yes, it is. It is literally her purpose of living is to give life.
Is the purpose of a river to flow? No, it doesn't have a purpose. It's just happening. Purpose is something that people imbue objects and pieces of reality with mentally. We're the ones that create.
Does your dick have a purpose?
No. Well,
that's a personal
sometimes.
question.
This one from
No, it doesn't. Hold on.
Yeah.
This one from Sam Mahagna says, Brenton is what I visualize when I think of a Redditor. Brenton, is this an insult?
I don't know. I don't go on Reddit, so I have no idea.
It is an insult, for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
At least he didn't call you a Discord mod, so
This one from Sausage Lord says, Stardust, why do you allow Brenton
short fat
to
otaku. I
appropriate
destroyed
Indian
on this
Buddhism
panel.
while he
At least
also
when I
tries
talked.
to allow trans women
Like I
into biological
destroyed on
women's
the China
spaces?
population question.
Okay, so I'm not a Buddhist.
Feels good.
So, it's not my place to be, telling him, gatekeeping or whatever.
I feel like I had some
if
really
that's what you
good
are, that's what you are.
moments early in the debate.
And just leave me away from it. Leave me,
But I don't know.
I'll
Sometimes
be
the conversation
sure not to
goes in
shock-a-boo-boo you.
directions that are just like stupid, and I have
So,
like nothing to add.
Yeah,
So it's
this
like,
is ridiculous.
what the fuck
because
are we even talking
Buddhism
about?
is essentially, like in a lot of ways, at least how it started out.
are you going
I'm
to
not
explain an
learned on the
Eastern
topic.
religion to me that originated?
Not to you. I'm explaining it to the.
Like they're talking about Buddhism right now, and I don't know anything about Buddhism, so I really can't give input.
I'm of Indian origin, so.
Okay, but what state were you born in? Can I pronounce it?
Wait, what?
Can I pronounce? You're proud. I thought you're an American, aren't you?
I am an American. I'm an American first.
Are people of
actually.
Indian descent imbued with the knowledge of Buddhism? Okay, calm down with the racial essentialism.
I'm
Nick,
joking.
all right?
It was called. It's called a joke.
No, you're trying to appeal to Nick here. Okay, you're emboldening his racist views. All right.
Right.
How am I emboldening anything? Oh my god.
But just so like Buddhism, especially like Theravada Buddhism, is essentially Hinduism stripped for export. The purpose of it was to go beyond India.
You know how this is giving me PTSD from like college. Whenever you get like all the Hindu, all the white Hindus and all the white Buddhists who come onto the college campus, and then they would set up.
Are you talking about Hare Krishnas?
Yeah, and they would set up their thing, and then they would and then you'd go, all the Indian kids, we'd be like, oh yeah, like the free food, whatever. So we'd go there and we get free food, but then inevitably you get somebody explains Hinduism to you while you're trying to just get free food. Yeah,
because it's a Hare Krishnas. Those are a cult.
Yeah, it's usually a white person who's explaining.
Yes,
it to you.
it's a cult that recruits white people in America.
Yeah.
Based.
This one coming in.
Hey, that's like me.
Yeah, true.
Oddly enough, I think that's the most honest you've been.
Robin says, Brent, don't do philosophy. There are refutations for the you can't derive an is from an ought argument from Hume.
There are like attempts at refuting it. I'm not aware of any, but maybe I read the wrong books. So
this one from Sam Mahagna says, Nick, when and how did the Destiny Best Friends Forever arc happen?
I don't know. He had this sort of great awakening. The last time we had talked before this blossoming friendship, he was just browbeating me and saying, you hate everyone and you want to kill everyone. You want to kill all Black people. It was on the Dick Masterson show. And I'm like, no, Destiny, I didn't know you're chill like that. Like, I'm just a chill guy. Okay. I'm a Christian. I'm a reactionary. And I don't know. Maybe he'd have to say, because I've always been a fan. Okay, I've always been a fan of the StarCraft gameplay, and I've always thought that he's sort of a secret Groiper, crouching Pepe hitting Groiper sort of action going on.
I think the actual story is that I didn't realize, but me and Nick just have so much in common. We're Hispanic, autistic, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really believe in dinosaurs either. Okay, so when you're hitting all three of those points, what am I supposed to do?
But Destiny, isn't your son based now? Isn't he conservative?
Yeah,
isn't that true?
You are obsessed with making cum jokes about my family, so I'm a little bit scared to talk about.
I didn't make a cum joke about your son. I'm just saying, isn't he? I think he's teaching you. He's converting you. Converting.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex,
I don't think Yipos is well.
Alex, I was conservative straight up until the end of college. I was young GOP, all for Iraq under Bush. In college, I was a right libertarian. Getting out into the real world is what made me an anarchist.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Appreciate it. Fish Monkey says, to say there is no objective truth is a self-contradiction. You are making a universal claim by saying, quote, unquote, there is no truth. The fact of the matter is there is no facts.
You just made a claim as a universal claim as well. All universal claims, technically, you can say that they're not true because nothing is perfect. So obviously you could argue, I guess, that there's some objective morals out there, but you would have to identify them, find them, and bring them to me so that I could examine them and make sure, oh yes, indeed, this is objective morals.
This one from Samir says, Alex, you are smart. Arguing degrades you. Stop. Incapacitating strike says, Brenton, do you huff paint?
Wait, I gotta ask an important question. Does anybody think that Alex Stein could be like that Better Call, like Saul's guy's son? Am I the only one that sees this?
Probably,
Didn't you work at like a car lot or something, Alex?
I got a dealer's license. Yeah, I buy and sell cars. Yeah, what? Come on, they're a commodity. I'm a pimp on a blimp, dog.
I can see why. I can see why you did that. You definitely are a good
I could sell. I could sell. That's what I'm saying. I could sell. Underwear to ass. I could sell ice to an Eskimo. I'm a pimp on a blimp. Yeah, I mean, I can actually sell. I didn't just sit on a stream. I actually had to go out in 110-degree heat and sell cars in Texas. Yeah, I've actually had to grind it out, unlike a lot of people on the internet.
I don't think.
Yeah, dude, what have you ever done? Have you ever sold anything in your life? Probably not. Exactly. You never had a real job. What did you sell? What did you sell?
I agree with you.
Oh yeah.
Are you talking? I want to tell you. Insurance person. Right, so,
I don't believe that.
It's
okay. You couldn't sell. Yeah, you couldn't sell a car to save your life.
It's real.
I used to manage sales, and I would hire you, Alex. You drive me freaking crazy, but I would hire you.
Because I can sell.
Sausage Lord says, Marie is the only cis white woman on the panel. Do you feel scared?
No, I think I'm fine.
This one from RH says, Marie Fuentes. This one from Lies Fern says, if I can identify as a different race, then if I identify as 100% white, will I be able to join Nick's ethno neighborhood?
What? Say that again.
If a black dude identifies as being white, can he join your ethno club?
Oh, I don't believe in such things like that. And I'm going to be in the Mexican Italian neighborhood anyway.
Grays 174 says Catholicism is heretical. Nick, why do you think it's okay to pray to Mary?
I'm not getting into that. I mean, that's, if you want to look that up, it's not heretical. She's a mother of God. She intercedes on our behalf. Is Protestant nonsense.
This one from Rob. A woman sounds kind of gay, so
well, we're not okay. Vedic priestess.
Yeah, I feel like
this one. We have so many.
That's okay. Keep going.
Quick. Robin says, Nick, Rome broke from Orthodoxy. Protestants followed.
That's not true. Orthodoxy broke from Rome. Peter's the leader, obviously.
Surfing Cowboy says, a troon, a commie that aligns with every corporation, the 6 millionth comedian, a cat boy, a tech support agent, a random. Let's see, what is this? Okay,
he's just insulting everybody on here.
What is it?
That's what he's doing.
It's a transgender person insult. Nice job, James. Oh, that's like the N word for trans people.
Yeah, that's really
literally. Yes. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. It sounds like I'm joking, but it is. It's like a Kiwi Farms insult for fucking trans. I don't know if it came from Kiwi Farms, but yeah.
Sorry, I did not know that for real. And then the commie. So for real, sorry about that. And then the commie, that must be Brenton though.
Yeah.
And then
wait, which one am I?
Well, the cat boy.
That's Nick. That's Nick. That's 100%.
Oh, it doesn't make sense because Catboy Cammy was a Catboy.
Clayton Hughes says, "Are Destiny and Nick best friends?"
Yes.
No, we're not best friends.
Yes, we are.
Nick needs to work on his shit a lot. Okay.
Yeah, we are.
He's inconsistent as fuck. He's asexual and incel at the same time. Doesn't even make sense.
Duality of man.
They threw the classic pray to Mary at you, which is an attack every Catholic has heard, and you let them get away with it. Okay, these heathens. You're not even. You're not. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't defend his faith. Okay. Like, look at this guy over here. Okay.
Steven.
Just unbelievable over here. He's got a lot of work to do.
You're embarrassing me. I thought
he's got a lot of work to do.
Next time I see you and we're hanging out, we're gonna talk about this.
Oh, okay? Yeah, and down here in Miami, we can go to Hialeah and hang out with my Cuban people. Okay.
Yeah, I'm inviting you to my birthday party. You're invited to my birthday party.
All right.
Light of the Twin Lamp says, thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 6 having a Latina protagonist. How will they implement the prostitution mechanic?
The fuck?
Oh, that's funny.
This one coming in from Dr. Robert says, Nick wants a girlfriend, but his ego won't allow him to admit there's something he wants but can't attain.
Oh. It's not true. I'm asexual and incel, and I hate women.
This one from First Name Last Name says, Brenton is an authority on whether things do or don't have a purpose since he himself has zero purpose. I'm sorry, Brenton. We love you.
I have zero purpose. Purpose is something that is created by humans. So I can create a purpose for myself. Someone else can look at me and think that they see a purpose. That's just how it works. It's a judgment.
I think I don't know. This is always the conservative or reactionary argument, is that like, progressives don't believe in teleology. They don't believe in a purpose in life, and so they're kind of directionless. And I don't know.
But Christians don't believe in a teleology, but they can't follow their Otello. So like they all have their own. Like if you ever want to, the biggest attack against Christianity is usually pointing out the behaviors of other Christians. So at the end of the day, everybody's fucking up. All right.
Yeah. And I'm not a progressive, so
true. ANCAPs.
No, I hate ANCAPs.
Jake says,
Jesus Christ.
Nick, are you willing to marry Stardust or Taftaj? Is it pronounced Taftaj?
You can pronounce it however you want. I think I say
If Taftaj is right, you're going to use the other T word you used earlier, James. Don't worry.
No, because Stardust is in white and Taftaj is in a girl. Taftaj is a guy dressed like
not based. Excuse me.
No, that is based. Okay?
Can't we have some respect?
He's just not willing to admit it publicly.
Taftaj is a racist tranny, and
a racist tranny,
and that confirms the Destiny subcommunity.
No, half right there.
Trans and gay people, and that's
what did I tell you guys about doping?
Taftaj can be a woman if a guy with the last name of Fuentes can lead a white nationalist movement. Okay, I think that's fair. Okay, I think we can.
Those are not analogous be okay with that. I never identified as white. I identify as black and Hispanic.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I thought earlier you didn't believe in that. So then earlier question you lied.
It's like 12.
If a black dude did believe that he was white, he would be able to join your movement.
It's getting close to Brenton's.
There was a neighborhood. I wouldn't let you in my neighborhood. I would call the cops immediately.
Writing to do.
This one for
an ambulance for him.
It's totally okay. There's maybe like there's a decent amount of questions left. So if you have to go,
how much longer? It's fucking EST. Yeah, it's 12:30 at night here. Okay.
It is really late.
We can't all go to fucking Subway in 30 minutes, get a free sub like you can, James. Okay, it's late for us. All right.
That has nothing to do with the time. Okay, next up.
Wait, how do you get a free sub at Subway? Explain.
Yeah, wait. How do you show us, James? How do you get it? Show us.
James,
no, don't tell us. Show, don't tell.
Forgive me, because I don't know if we can get through all these questions. I'll show the tattoo if the chat can forgive me that we won't.
You got a Subway tattoo?
No, show you. Don't spoil it. Show us. It's a small one. You won't even believe how small it is. Show it. Nick, turn away.
You actually have
look
a
at
Subway
this.
tattoo?
Whoa!
Oh
Wait, what?
It's so good.
James. I don't know how to feel about this.
What is that?
I thought it was based.
That's
reaction.
That's $50,000. That's $50,000 of Subway. Okay, that's free Subway for life, baby. There it is.
But that's fake, James.
It's not fake.
I think initially I lost respect.
Why?
And then I gained it.
It was like 5 hours, and it was so painful. I flew to Las Vegas because Subway had a promotion where they said if you get this 12 by 12 inch tattoo, then we will give you $50,000 worth of Subway for life. And I did it.
What?
You're trolling. You're trolling. Wait, shut up. Everybody chill out. You're trolling, James.
Yeah, he got the tattoo for fun. Actually, it is a troll. You're right, Alex.
No, that's not a real tattoo.
It's a real tattoo.
Way.
Google it. We all saw it in the media. We watched
there
the
are
stories.
articles on this.
Why would James get a fake tattoo, stick it on his back, wait for 3 freaking hours for some random person to ask him about it?
It is funny. So I wouldn't put it past him, but yeah, it seems real. It's a good investment.
That sounds like the plot of it. That sounds like the plot of an Alex Stein YouTube
not
video.
Even good. I mean, it's not. What are you gonna get? You're gonna get. I know it's not even.
It's the worst chain.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not.
It's
get sandwiches.
Listen, if you think Subway's the worst chain, that's on you. You fucking pick the ingredients.
Hang on, it's not Happy Gilmore. It's Community. That's when they had the guy name himself Subway. But James, are you allowed to make that into something else? Can you add to it, or are you forever?
Why would I want to do that, Brenton?
How many sandwiches do you get a day? You get 1 foot long, and you get unlimited meats, or is there a limit of meats and toppings on the sandwich?
It's $50,000.
I get, yeah. So,
but there's a limit at 50,000. The gift card is
50,000 is a number, and that is the limit. Yes.
Yeah.
Are they still doing this?
Unfortunately, they're not still doing it as a 1-day promotion. But basically, the math I did is the sub that I could get it every other day, a foot long for 40 years.
I can just see James. There's you said they let 8 people in. I can just see James smiling outside as the 8th guy. The 9th dude is some fucking poor homeless guy that's trying to feed his family, and James is just smiling in line.
Can you get it removed, James?
Do you need to show them the tattoo every time you go?
Subway bread.
Hold on. Do you need to
It's yoga mats. It's made with yoga mats, so that's why their bread's like that.
Okay, let's pick it up. 12:30 EST. James, what do we got?
Pack it up. So I do want to say, folks, a couple of things. One is if you happen to send a question, but it didn't get read on air, shoot me an email at modernday28@gmail.com. And want to remind you, our guests are linked in the description. Want to say We highly encourage you. You can check out their links. We appreciate your guys' questions and want to say thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. If you have not yet, hit that subscribe button. Oh, this is good. Just let me get this last one in. Winston Fujimori says, if Stardust misses it, Ghost Politics was right about Nick Fuentes and Groyper's. Ghost won. Ralph lost. Baked Alaska is a
What was he
federal
right
informant.
about?
Power Chat is a honeypot. Shout outs to the farms. Josh Moon, Ghost, the anime right, Jaden McNeil, Mr. Medicare.
That guy's fat and ugly. So
This
there
one,
you go.
this we'll wrap up with. Want to say, folks, highly encourage you. Check out our guest links in the description. And thanks so much for being with us. Hit that subscribe button for future debates as Richard Spencer and TikTok star Kendon Farr debate abortion this Saturday. You don't want to miss it. Thanks so much, though, to our guests.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
having me.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. It was great.
Thank you
Fun
for
to have you
having
here,
me.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Are we on or are we off now?
I'm about
Well, I mean,
to
we're
we're
on
ending.
still, but
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Let us
And
know
I
when
will
we
Are
can
you
start
going to be the
recording.
next Jared Fogle, James? Are you going to take over
okay.
Jared
On the
Fogle's
count
job?
of 3, we're all
God.
going to say the worst
think
slur
so.
that we know. Okay.
Okay,
Let's do
here we
it.
go.
One,
Off
Perfect.
screen. Off
2,
3.
3.
Thank you very
Mackerel
much.
snap.
Hold on.
All right,
3.
thank you,
Are we
guys.
off? Are we off?
We're off.
Oh, wait,
I'm
no,
always
Destiny's streaming.
Yeah, I'm
No,
streaming.
not gonna-
Don't say
okay.
crazy.
I'm streaming as well.
I was this close.
Yeah,
I
seriously,
was
dude.
this
Sam
close.
Cedar's got his finger on the record button. Okay, watch out. He's fucking watching.
No, not the end. I was this close, just letting it. But no,
Sam
I
Cedar is going to
come
make
on.
so much in ad revenue.
Just
Be
the
able to dust
N-word? That's weak,
infinite
Nick.
crime.
What's worse than that?
I hate that Nick missed
I was going to say the
my-
Holocaust, but I guess you probably don't believe that's real. So.
Well, that's not a slur. Holocaust isn't a slur.
True.
Yeah.
That was fun. Thank you, guys.
That was
let me know
super fun.
If I can add any links to the description, I've got everybody linked already. But if you want me to add any in addition to the 1 or 2 in Brenton's case that I have in the description box, let me know and I will.
Okay. I love you guys. Have fun.
You have a link to my
love you
OnlyFans,
too,
right?
Steven. Love you
I'm,
too,
I'm
Steve.
very
Yeah.
happy you joined. Like,
Check your
you did
Discord,
really
Nick.
good.
Loser. Bye.
I will. I will check it.
Guys, have a good night.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Good
See ya.
night.
Then I-
See ya.
Take care.
Good stuff, guys. That was excellent. We're going to sign off because I'm exhausted. I always get so exhausted by these things. And I know I don't seem exhausted right now because I'm speaking really quickly because I love doing that, going rap god. That was a lot of fun.